Chapter 2843. All of a sudden, Sunran seemed to have understood something. His eyes widened as he stared at Kuan-Tian in front of him in disbelief. His heart was in turmoil. I understand now. Why? You're not Kuan-Tian at all. Who are you? Who are you? When he said these words, the shock and disbelief in his heart had already reached a world-shaking level. At the same time, there was also a deep sense of fear mixed within. This fear was so strong that even his soul was trembling, and his entire body couldn't help but tremble. He had already realized that if Kuan-Tian was an imposter, the imposter would definitely be a cultivator from the outside world. Cultivators from the outside world, who were over 1,000 years old, could not enter the Dark Star world through the tunnel between the two worlds. However, the imposter Kuan-Tian was a true 6th heavenly layer infinite prime. His battle prowess was even greater than experts who had just broken through to the 6th heavenly layer. What did this mean? It meant that a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime who was less than 1,000 years old had appeared in the outside world. Moreover, this expert had snuck into their Dark Star world silently, infiltrating the upper echelon of the Dark Star race. He had become a high and mighty palace master who held great power in his hands. This was just too terrifying. It was so terrifying that Sunran's fear had reached an unprecedented level. You're pretty smart. You've actually seen through my identity so quickly. Jianqin smiled mysteriously. He said, Sunran, do you still remember the cultivator from the outside world who caused havoc in Dark Knight City not long ago? Sunran's eyes widened as he said in shock, so you're the cultivator from the outside world called Guqi. You. Sunran was so shocked that he could not speak. However, he understood that a powerful person from the outside world who had schemed to infiltrate the upper echelons of the Dark Star race must have some shocking secret that could not be revealed. Suddenly, he thought of the great sacrificial ceremony that the Dark Star race would be holding soon that would determine the fate of their entire race. He immediately became extremely nervous. I can't die here. I definitely can't die here. I have to go back. I have to do everything in my power to go back and report this shocking news to the great emperor. His gaze immediately became crazed. The life force in his body was draining away at an extremely terrifying rate. It was not just his life force. Even his essence was burning at the same time. He was already using a secret technique at the cost of his life. You still want to escape? Sunran, you know my biggest secret. Do you think I will let you leave here alive? Jianqin sneered. He kicked Sunran's head, and the powerful force sent Sunran's body flying. His primordial spirit suffered a violent impact, and he felt dizzy. His primordial spirit shook violently, as if it was about to split apart. The escape technique he was about to cast was abruptly interrupted. The deafening roars of beasts constantly rang out in their surroundings. The presences of the primordial realm blanketed the surroundings. Over 40 primordial realm, life-devouring beasts surrounded them from all directions. They moved extremely quickly. The fastest one was only a few hundred kilometers away from the two of them. This seemed very far, but it was only a few minutes for primordial realm experts. It was a bird that flew through the air at high speeds. It was impossible to tell what species it was. It had the head of a huge hawk and the body of a cheetah. It had 2 pairs of wings on its back, one large and one small. They were engraved with beautiful and admirable patterns, just like the wings of a butterfly. Every time it flapped its wings, a gust of wind would be whipped up high in the sky. Fog would churn, and wind blades would appear out of thin air. They were incomparably sharp as they swept in all directions, cutting down many of the towering ancient trees below. All of the numerous life-sucking beasts that were active in the forest would tremble and crawl on the ground. Behind the strange bird, the ground shook violently and rhythmically. A colossal figure that was several hundred meters tall could be vaguely seen running through the mist behind it. It was difficult to imagine just how heavy its body was. With every step it took, the ground would tremble and the mountains would shake. As it ran, it smashed through everything in its path. Countless towering trees and boulders were reduced to pieces. Even the thick fog that filled the area seemed to disperse due to the terrifying power it possessed when it came into contact with its colossal body. This was a colossal, primordial realm, life-devouring beast. It was truly unstoppable. Wherever it passed by, it would leave behind a path of vacuum as it approached Genshin with unstoppable force. These two were the primordial realm, life-devouring beasts closest to Genshin. There were even more primordial realm, life-devouring beasts in the surroundings. However, due to the difference in distance and speed, the time they came into contact with Genshin and Sunran was different as well. Sunran also sensed the rapidly approaching primordial realm, life-devouring beasts. His face was ashen as despair filled his eyes. He said viciously, "Even if you kill me, you won't be able to survive either. We've already been surrounded by so many Domain King level, life-devouring beasts of the Two-World Mountain. Even if your strength isn't suppressed by the Two-World Mountain, you won't be able to escape. If I were you, the first thing I would do would be to leave here quickly so that I wouldn't die from the encirclement. After all, this is the Two-World Mountain, not outside." Genshin could not help but look around when he heard that. He immediately became serious. The strength of the Two-World Mountain could not be underestimated. It was no weaker than the Darkstar race. This time, there were 12 primordial realm, life-devouring beasts at the 5th heavenly layer or higher. This number had already surpassed the Darkstar race. This was because only the leaders of the 10 divine halls and the Darkstar Emperor, who rarely showed himself, were at the 5th heavenly layer or higher in the entire Darkstar race. However, just when Genshin paid attention to the surroundings, determination appeared in Sunrant's eyes. In the next moment, with a deafening boom, Sunrant's entire body exploded. His tremendous cultivation, which was equivalent to a 5th heavenly layer infinite prime, actually turned into a meter-long finger in the air. It radiated with shocking might. The finger condensed all the energy in Sunrant's body. A 5th heavenly layer infinite prime had condensed all his cultivation into the finger after countless years of arduous cultivation. In the end, the power of the finger had completely exceeded the limit of the 5th heavenly layer, reaching the peak of the 6th heavenly layer. It had even reached the threshold of the 7th heavenly layer. However, Sunran did not die. His body had been destroyed, but his soul remained. His dim soul was wrapped up by energy, and it fled out of the Two-World Mountain as a streak of light when his body exploded. At the same time, the finger condensed from all the energy and his body shot towards Genshin with terrifying power that could destroy space. Genshin's eyes shone brightly. He could clearly sense an ancient and powerful will from the finger. It was also because of the existence of the will that the power of the Two-World Mountain was unable to bind the finger. As a result, the power of the finger could be completely unleashed in the special environment of the Two-World Mountain without weakening at all. A sliver of the will of a grand exalt of the Darkstar race, Genshin murmured inside. With a flash, he vanished in a single instance. When he reappeared, he was already 100 kilometers away. However, his presence had been locked onto. The finger of energy pursued Genshin as a black streak of light. It pierced through space, ignoring the laws of space and appearing before Genshin in a single instance. Afterwards, it passed through Genshin without any obstructions. However, this was only an afterimage. His true body had already appeared 100 kilometers away through the laws of space. He stood on the back of the primordial realm, life-devouring beast with the leopard's body and butterfly wings that had arrived first. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast sensed Genshin the moment he appeared. However, it was in no mood to pay attention to the person on its back right now. Its eyes narrowed as it stared at the finger of energy that shot towards it as a streak of black light. The life-devouring beast was around the strength of a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime. It felt an unprecedented threat from the finger that possessed a sliver of the will of a grand exalt of the Dark Star race, which had reached the peak of the sixth heavenly layer. Its intelligence was not enough to determine that the finger's target was not it, but the figure standing on its back. In its instincts, since the finger was coming straight for it, it was its enemy. Its beautiful butterfly-like wings suddenly emitted a dazzling light. When the wings closed, it formed a huge light blade that directly slashed at the incoming energy finger. Boom! With a great rumble, the attack from the primordial realm, life-devouring beast, was nothing before the finger of energy. It was shattered immediately, while the finger of energy did not slow down at all. It struck the life-devouring beast mercilessly with the might of a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime. The life-sucking beast with a pair of butterfly wings let out a painful wail as its huge body fell from the sky. Dark green liquid flowed out of its giant eagle head, and cracks appeared on its skull. The butterfly wings on its back were also badly damaged, and a small part of them was missing, causing the wings to no longer be complete. As for Jian Chen, who stood on its back, he had vanished at some point in time as well. To another side, Ghastly's soul rapidly fled outside under the protection of a ball of energy. Even though he was a soul now, his presence still leaked out in all directions, allowing all the primordial realm life-devouring beasts to sense his existence. Ghastly could hide his presence with a secret technique when he possessed a body, but now that he was a soul, he could not hide his presence even if he wanted to. As a result, he became a huge light bulb in the eyes of all the primordial realm, life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountain range. As for Genshin, his presence had completely vanished when Ghastly's finger of energy struck the life-devouring beast. Although I've lost my body, it's not easy for you to block an attack condensed from all the cultivation in my body, even if you have the full strength of a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime. By the time you catch your breath, the Domain King level life-devouring beast will have already entangled you. Only death will await you in the end, Jian said coldly. Although I can't restrain my aura in my primordial spirit state, my speed is even faster. These life-sucking beasts can forget about catching up to me. Kuin Tian, no, I should say Gucci, if you want to kill me, you're still lacking a little. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Ghastly's mouth as he fled. He did not feel sorry for losing his physical body at all. The greatest benefit of the Dark Star race was that they did not have internal strife, allowing them to live extremely long lives. As long as their souls remained, they had plenty of time to recover their lost cultivation. I'm still lacking a little if I want to kill you. Leader Ghastly, aren't you overestimating yourself? However, at this moment, a calm and slightly mocking voice rang out from up ahead. Chapter 2844. Jianqin appeared silently in front of him. He stood with his arms crossed, as if he had been waiting for a very long time already. Immediately, Sen's soul came to a halt as quickly as he could. He glanced at Jianqin, who had blocked his path in fright. Without any hesitation, he fled in another direction with a heart filled with fear. This time he fled even faster. His primordial spirit seemed to be burning with a ball of fire. As his speed increased, his primordial spirit became weaker and weaker. At this moment, he was truly fleeing for his life, regardless of the cost. He had already used a secret technique to burn his soul in exchange for greater speed. In a single instance, Sen's soul crossed several hundred kilometers. He moved extremely quickly, pulling away from the several dozen primordial realm, life-devouring beasts in pursuit. Jianqin could not help but sneer mockingly. He did not pursue in the direction that Anghang had fled in. Instead, the space around him pulsed slightly, and he vanished as spatial force permeated the surroundings. Arg! Impossible! That's impossible! How are you faster than me? In the next moment, Sen's soul cried out in a mountain forest several hundred kilometers away. His voice was filled with disbelief and despair. Before him, Jianqin continued to hover in the air with his arms crossed. He was composed like a cat toying with a mouse. Son, don't even think about fleeing before me, let alone two-world mountain. Even if we were in the territory of your dark star race, you wouldn't be able to escape at all if I wanted to kill you, Jianqin said indifferently. With that, he suddenly extended his hand and grabbed at the awe-inspiring soul from afar. With that, the space around Sun immediately froze. His soul was bound by space as well, unable to move at all. If he still possessed his body, he could easily shatter the frozen space with the great strength of his body. However, without his body, he had lost his greatest source of power. As a result, under Jianqin's spatial restraints, he was directly reduced to meat on the chopping block, completely at the mercy of Jianqin. The law of space. You've actually grasped the law of space. It was only at this moment that Sun suddenly realized why Jianqin was able to surpass him and appear in front of him time and time again. His speed was even faster than when he burned his primordial spirit. Yet he actually wanted to flee from a primordial realm expert who had grasped the laws of space. That was indeed a waste of effort. At that moment, Sun Ran truly lost all hope. He understood that even if he moved several times faster, it was impossible for him to escape from a primordial realm expert who had grasped the laws of space. Gu Qi, with your strength and talent, you'd probably be a rare prodigy even in the saints' world where experts are as common as clouds. I don't understand why you would go through so much trouble and take such great risks to infiltrate our dark star race with your status. Is it just for the resources you need in the outside world? He knew that he would not be able to escape death, but before he died, he only hoped that he could die with some understanding. In the surroundings, the presences of the primordial realm, life-devouring beasts drew closer and closer. The heavy presence was like a lamp in the darkness, pointing out a direction for the life-devouring beasts. As a result, all of them hurried over to where he was. In just a few seconds, Senran would be surrounded by the primordial realm life-devouring beasts. Since you want to know so much, I'll let you know before you die. Do you still remember the divine beast that your dark star race took away? That divine beast and I are as close as brothers. Yet you dark star people want to use my kin as a sacrifice for the sake of the success of your grand ritual. I've come to the dark star world this time to ruin your grand ceremony and save that divine beast, Gu Qi said emotionlessly. He was filled with killing intent as soon as he mentioned Sacred Feather, who was still suffering from who knows what kind of torture he was currently enduring. Hearing this, Sun Ran became silent, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. After a while he laughed. His laughter was a little crazy as he muttered to himself, I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. After so many years of preparation. In the end, it was because of a divine beast that ruined the grand ceremony of my clan. That was Sun Ran's final sentence. With that, the frozen space around him returned to normal. Jianqin, who had been concealing his presence the entire time, vanished silently once again. As soon as Jianqin vanished, a mountainous ape-man that stood over 300 meters tall appeared before Sun Ran. It produced a deafening roar and directly swung its hand towards Sun Ran's soul. When the ape-man struck out, 3 colossal figures appeared in 3 other directions as well. They directly locked onto Sun Ran's soul, which gave off the presence of the dark star race and launched attacks at the same time. The result was obvious. Sun Ran's fragile soul was unable to put up any resistance at all before the primordial realm life-devouring beasts. He was obliterated as easily as crushing an ant. Sun Ran was dead. A powerful primordial realm expert of the dark star race had died so easily in Two-World Mountain. No one even knew about his death. Perhaps because the several dozen primordial realm life-devouring beasts had sensed the death of the dark star expert. Some of the life-devouring beasts that had yet to arrive all stopped. Afterwards, they all roared at the sky as if they were passing on a message to one another, as if they were celebrating through this method. For a moment, terrifying beast roars rang out from the depths of the Two-World Mountain range. They even reached the outskirts, causing the cultivators from the saints' world who were hunting life-devouring beasts in the outskirts to panic. They had no idea what was happening. However, what Jianqin did not know was that an illusionary figure hovered 10,000 meters above where Sun Ran had died. He seemed to have fused with the surroundings, where every single movement he made possessed the charm of the ways. He seemed to be in harmony with the ways of the world. Even the special environment of Two World Mountain was unable to obstruct him at all. No one knew when he had appeared, nor did they know how long he had been there. However, he clearly witnessed the battle between Jianqin and Sun Ran, as well as the process of Sun Ran's death. No one discovered his existence. None of the primordial realm life-devouring beasts, or even Jianqin, sensed the existence of the figure at all. Even with Jianqin's sharp senses, he failed to sense anything amiss. 2 of the 10 Hall Masters of the Dark Star race have already passed away. They're missing 2 Hall Masters, so the grand ceremony this time has already been affected. Coupled with the fact that Jianqin is a hidden chess piece who's causing trouble at a crucial moment, the grand ceremony will definitely fail this time. The figure laughed aloud in the cloudy sky. His laughter was filled with joy, as if failing the grand ceremony was extremely important to him. Afterwards, the figure strolled through the air and left. With a single step, the world immediately changed. The sun and moon seemed to reverse. In the previous moment, he was still in the depths of Two World Mountain, but with a single step, he crossed an unimaginable distance, directly leaving the range of Two World Mountain. At the same time, he crossed most of the territory of the Dark Star race and arrived before the royal capital of the Dark Star race. In the end, he vanished into the royal capital. Out of the 36 main cities of the Dark Star race, only Dark Knight City was the closest to Two World Mountain. Even Jianqin, who had grasped the laws of space, needed to use a teleportation formation to reach Dark Knight City in the shortest amount of time possible. Afterwards, he would have to fly there at high speeds for a short while. If he did not use a teleportation formation and directly flew to Two World Mountain from the royal capital, the distance would be several tens of millions of kilometers at the very least, or even over 100 million kilometers. Even with Jianqin's speed, it would take him quite some time to travel such a distance. However, at this moment, in front of this illusory human figure, such a long distance was merely covered by a single step. Such a terrifying speed was truly appalling. Chapter 2845. In the depths of the Two World Mountains, Jianqin stood before a lake with his original appearance several million kilometers away from where Sun had died. His presence was concealed, so the many life-devouring beasts hidden in the lake failed to sense his existence. The lake was the territory of a primordial realm life-devouring beast. However, the primordial realm life-devouring beast had yet to return due to the great distance it had traveled. When it went out to kill Senator, the primordial realm life-devouring beast was not the only one that lived in the lake. There were many other Divine King realm life-devouring beasts below the Divine King realm as well. They hid at the bottom of the lake quietly, as if they were cultivating in their own unique method. Jianqin expanded the senses of his soul. He could clearly see the situation in the lake with the powerful senses of his soul. Even the cave at the bottom of the lake that belonged to the primordial realm life-devouring beast did not escape his detection. I'll leave Kuan Tian's items here for now. Even if the experts of the Dark Star race find them, they can just be explained as accidentally losing them during the battle against the life-devouring beast. Just in case they expose my identity, Jianqin murmured to himself. Afterwards, the 2 god artifacts he had obtained from Kuan Tian appeared in his hand. Afterwards, he sent the 2 god artifacts into the center of the lake through the power of space, where the primordial realm life-devouring beast's nest clearly resided. They were buried by the messy items in the nest. Jianqin had already discovered that the life-devouring beast in the lake was around the strength of a 4th heavenly layer infinite prime. If it were a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime of the Dark Star race, They would not necessarily be able to deal with a life-devouring beast like that when their strength was suppressed. It made sense that they had lost their god artifacts. Afterwards, Jianqin checked his space ring carefully again. He focused on the 30,000 high-quality divine king grasses in there. Only after confirming that there were no imprints on them did he leave at ease. Not long after Jianqin left, the master of the pool finally returned to his lair. This was a gigantic python that was several hundred feet long. Its body was enormous, and its lantern-sized eyes flickered with a bright light. Primordial realm, life-devouring beasts possessed some basic intelligence, but clearly their intelligence was nowhere close to that of ordinary people. As soon as it returned to its own cave, it keenly sensed that something was wrong. Its lantern-sized eyes scanned the surroundings before finally landing on the pile of miscellaneous items in the corner. Its eyes locked onto the pile of miscellaneous items that had suddenly appeared below the pile of miscellaneous items. It tilted its head and revealed a pondering expression. It seemed that, in its memory, these two things were not in the pile of junk. It thought for a long time, but could not think of a reason. Fortunately, it did not think about it and did not care about these extra things. Its body lay down, curled up on the ground, and fell asleep. Many cultivators from the outside world gathered in groups of 3 to 5 in the outskirts of Two World Mountain. They were scattered in different directions. Originally, these people wanted to kill a few more life-devouring beasts, while the Darkstar race was purchasing the flesh and blood of the life-devouring beasts at a high price. However, none of them had any interest in killing life-devouring beasts now. They all concealed their presences carefully as they stared at the depths of Two World Mountain uneasily and uneasily. Some of the more cowardly people even began to tremble in fright. Their faces paled as they tried their best to convince their companions to retreat quickly. All of this was because of the shocking beast roars that rang out from the depths of Two World Mountain. The primordial realm, life-devouring beasts that resided in the depths of Two World Mountain had always been a legend to these hunting groups, where the strongest was only a divine king, and there were even many over-gods among them. However, they had actually heard the roars of so many primordial realm, life-devouring beasts at the same time today. This immediately terrified all the cultivators in the outside world. "I quit. If you want to stay, stay. I'm not going to keep you company. If those terrifying existences in the depths emerge, we won't even be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. I'm going back. Although the Darkstar race's price is very tempting, you need to be alive to get it. If you're dead, you won't be able to enjoy it no matter how much they give you. Two World Mountain is clearly not peaceful right now. Let's retreat first." Jianshan moved like a ghost, silently flying towards the 100 Saints city. He had already passed through the thick mist and arrived in the outskirts of Two World Mountain. He immediately discovered that large groups of cultivators were retreating from Two World Mountain. Jianqin could not help but sigh emotionally when he saw this. If it were not for his great strength, he probably would have become one of the fleeing cultivators in such a situation. "I'm still not powerful enough." Jianqin clenched his fists. He knew that he was powerful enough to run amok among the Darkstar race, but it was nothing in the Saints' world or the Immortals' world. However, he had never broken through with the laws of the sword, and his chaotic body had always been stuck at the 14th layer due to the limitations of the laws. If he wanted to reach the 15th layer with the chaotic body, he could only break through with the laws of the sword and reach the partial achievement of Sword Immortal. The further I advance in the laws of the world, the more difficult it becomes to comprehend them. Every single increase requires a very long period of time. Now that I don't have the assistance of the Fortune Jade Seat, it won't be as easy for me to comprehend the laws of the world. I wonder when I can reach the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, Jianqin thought. He knew that as long as he could reach the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, even the greatest expert of the Darkstar race, the Darkstar Emperor, who is equivalent to a chaotic prime, would not be his opponent. At that time, he would even be able to cut down true chaotic primes with a single stroke of his sword. The fruit of ways will be my opportunity to break through to the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, but I can't touch it right now. Let's not even talk about the fact that it hasn't ripened yet, so its effects are nowhere near enough. Even if I want to touch it, I have to save Siyu first. Genshin thought. Siyu's life was still in the hands of the Darkstar Emperor. He could control her life with a single thought, so he had to be cautious. Before long, Genshin arrived outside the great tower of the 100 Saint City. The 100 Saint City was still enveloped by powerful formations, only leaving the city gates open. The city gates were heavily guarded. The several dozen peak organizations that had settled down in the 100 Saint City had all sent a few Divine King-level sacrificial warriors to stand guard. They would conduct the strictest checks on all cultivators that entered and exited the city. Obviously, after experiencing the calamity brought by the 7th Divine Hall, the entire 100 Holy City was now in a state of high alert. Although the 5th Divine Hall came forward to protect them, many forces in 100 Holy City dared not really pin all their hopes on others. Genshin was in no hurry to enter the city. Instead, he stood outside the city gates and secretly established a connection with the power of his soul he had left with He Qianqian. At the same time, He Qianqian was listening to the reports of the recent situation in the 100 Saint City in the Divine Hall that belonged to the Tianhe clan. Suddenly, He Qianqian's expression changed. With a flip of her hand, she took out the Divine Hall that Genshin had given her. She immediately probed it with her divine sense and sensed it carefully. The next moment, He Qianqian's spirit shook and she was overjoyed. She didn't have time to listen to the reports of her subordinates and immediately ran out of the Divine Hall. After sending a voice transmission to Jin Hong, she flew toward the city gates. In another area of the 100 Saint City, in the Divine Hall that belonged to the Ashwolf clan, Jin Hong was holding a wooden sculpture and concentrating on carving it. Suddenly, a sound transmission from He Qianqian entered Jin Hong's ears, causing the carving in his hand to come to a halt. A glint flashed across his eyes as he looked towards the direction of the city gate. A faint smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth, seemingly filled with gratification. Chapter 2846. Genshin stood at the edge of the main road leading to the city with his arms crossed outside the city. He waited patiently as he watched the cultivators enter and leave the city. A few seconds later, the white-clothed He Qianqian and the plainly dressed Jin Hong appeared on the tall walls of the city at the same time. Their gazes immediately locked onto the composed Genshin below. Genshin seemed rather travel-worn right now. He seemed slightly exhausted, and his hair was slightly messy. His white robes were stained with specks of green liquid and dust. One of his sleeves had even been slightly damaged. Jin Hong and He Qianqian could tell with a single glance that the green liquid on Genshin was the liquid of some of the plants in Two World Mountain. Coupled with his tattered clothes and heavy exhaustion, it all clearly demonstrated just how difficult his time in Two World Mountain had been. He Qianqian was greatly moved when she saw the travel-worn and exhausted Genshin. She understood that when the late Divine King life-devouring beast chased after them in Two World Mountain, it was Genshin who had stepped forward without any hesitation and lured the life-devouring beast king away at great risk, which gave them precious time to escape. However, Genshin had ended up trapped in the depths of Two World Mountain for so long because of her actions. She did not know what Genshin had gone through in Two World Mountain, but she did know just how heavy of a price the group had paid when they crossed the mountain. They had gone through so many life-threatening situations, and just how difficult it was for them to successfully make it out of Two World Mountain. Even such a large group had ended up like that, let alone Genshin, who was all alone. Jin Hong leapt down from the walls and directly ignored the soldiers who bowed at him. He arrived before Genshin in a single stride and patted Genshin's shoulder heavily. He laughed aloud. "Chongyang, you've finally come out, and I had thought you were stuck in the depths of Two World Mountain." As he said that, a gleam of light flickered through Jin Hong's eyes. He could feel the power of his bloodline stir once again as he came into contact with Genshin at such a close distance. It was boiling as if it was about to ignite. It was filled with an extremely great desire. It was as if something on Genshin was clearly extremely important to him, which was why it could stir up the power of his bloodline. Brother Jin Hong, you're exaggerating. I lived in fear at all times in Two World Mountain. Even the slightest carelessness could cost me my life. It's not that I didn't want to come out earlier, but that it was difficult. Genshin bitterly smiled. He Qianshan and Jin Hong both agreed with that. They guessed that Changyang must have encountered the pursuit of many life-devouring beasts in Two World Mountain during this period of time. He had used the laws of space to frantically flee, so it was unavoidable for him to take many detours under such circumstances. He might have even been forced to make a detour when powerful, life-devouring beasts blocked his path. Jin Hong and He Qianshan felt even more guilty towards Genshin when they thought up to their Changyang, you've suffered in the past few days, but don't worry. I, He Qianshan, will use other methods to make up for what you've suffered in Two World Mountain. He Qianshan also arrived before Genshin and stood beside Jin Hong. She thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Yes. You lured the life-sucking Beast King away without hesitation, saving us all. We owe you a favor. I, Jin Hong, will repay this favor for you, Jin Hong said solemnly. Afterwards, Genshin entered the 100 Saint City without any obstructions under the personal invitation and accompaniment of Jin Hong and He Qianshan. In the end, he was invited to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall by He Qianshan. After all, logically speaking, Genshin was still a member of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. As long as he did not leave the world of the fallen beast, his identity would be tied to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Both He Qianshan and Jin Hong were great figures of great authority in the 100 Saint City because they were the people with the highest status in their clans. They each led a large number of Divine King-level sacrificial warriors. Under certain circumstances, they could unleash the battle prowess of the primordial realm. As a result, the two of them personally inviting an outsider into the 100 Saints city naturally attracted the attention of many organizations in the city. For example, the spies of the many peak organizations in the city all reported this to their masters as soon as possible. Suddenly, the leaders of the various forces in the divine halls in the various regions of the 100 Saint city were shocked and surprised when they heard the news. What did you say? He Qianshan and Jin Hong have personally gone to the city to receive a cultivator into the city? What kind of status do the two of them have? Who exactly is qualified for them to personally welcome them? Are you sure? Did He Qianshan and Jin Hong really go to the city to receive a person from the Saints' world personally? Impossible. Just what kind of status do He Qianshan and Jin Hong have? One of them is a direct descendant of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, while the other is the young master of the Ashwolf clan. In terms of status, they're much more noble than me. Just who has such great authority? They actually have to receive him personally. Hold on, draw that person's portrait. Afterwards, an attendant immediately began to draw in the air, using his finger as a brush and energy as ink. He drew Genshin's portrait in a lifelike manner. This kind of method was an insignificant matter to any deity realm martial artist. It's actually Changyang. How is this possible? Changyang is actually still alive. He made it out of the Two-World Mountain alive. Basically, at the same time, the representatives of the various organizations all received Genshin's portrait. However, when they learned that Genshin had not died in the Two-World Mountain and had even returned safely, they all reacted differently after recovering from their surprise. Among them, the Emperor Lotus Sword sect, Baijian clan, Crimson Light clan, Lutian clan, Man family, and Sun family all rejoiced over Genshin's safe return. As a matter of fact, the leaders of a few organizations, such as the prodigy of the Emperor Lotus Sword sect, Ping Yixing, immediately got people to prepare great gifts as soon as they learned that Genshin had returned. They personally brought the gifts to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Of course, there were many organizations that did not care. Not everyone agreed with what Jianchen had done in the Two-World Mountain. In the eyes of a few prodigies of great status who were used to others dying to protect them, they all believed that Jianchen's actions should have been like that. It was as if this was the mission of independent cultivators in their eyes. Bang! At the same time, the sound of bottles being smashed rang out from the divine hall of the Chu family. The sounds constantly rang out. Chu Jie's anger could not be quenched. He was currently throwing a huge tantrum. Inside the grand hall, all the decorative bottles and jars were smashed into pieces by him. The tables and chairs were also sent flying. The entire divine hall was in a mess. Nearby, a few old overgods stood to one side. They did not dare to say anything, so they could only let Chu Jie throw a fit. A while later, when there was nothing left in the divine hall to vent his anger, Chu Jie finally stopped. His eyes were slightly red, but they were extremely shocking. They radiated with shocking killing intent as he breathed heavily. Originally, I thought that Changyang had died in the Two-World Mountain, but I never thought that not only was he still alive, but he's even returned in one piece. He sure is lucky. But this is even better. I just happened to have the opportunity to kill you, personally. Changyang, I can't do anything to you in the Two-World Mountain due to the limitations of the environment. But now that we're outside, it's not up to you to decide. You are very powerful, but no matter how powerful you are, can you fend off a primordial realm expert? Chapter 2847. Not long after Jianchen, He Qianqian and Jin Hong returned to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. They received visits from the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect, the Baijiang clan, the Crimson Light clan, and several other organizations. Moreover, they were all personally led by the prodigies of the various organizations. He Qianqian naturally welcomed their joint visit warmly. She personally went out to receive them, inviting the representatives of the various organizations into the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Afterwards, she set up a banquet and warmly entertained them. Yang Yutian, it looks like we've all underestimated you. I never thought that you would be able to survive in the depths of the Two-World Mountain alone for so long. Your strength and courage are truly admirable. Brother Yang Yutian, it's all thanks to you that we were able to draw away the late Divine King, Life-Devouring Beast King in the depths of the Two-World Mountain. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unthinkable if the Life-Devouring Beast King had managed to kill its way into the crowd. Brother Yang Yutian, tell us how you managed to shake off the Life-Devouring Beast King. Did you use the laws of space in the Two-World Mountain so quickly that the Life-Devouring Beast King couldn't catch up to you? However, you really are bold. The depths of the Two-World Mountain are shrouded in mist. Visibility is extremely low, and even the senses of the soul are greatly suppressed. Under such circumstances, you still dare to use the laws of space to travel. Aren't you afraid that you'll end up in a tiger's den if you're too fast? Brother Yang, tell us how you survived in the Two-World Mountain and what kind of dangers you experienced. It'll be good for us to broaden our horizons. The huge round table was filled with delicacies. Many prodigies were gathered around the table, drinking and chatting merrily. They chatted loudly and laughed heartily from time to time. Jianchen maintained a smile the entire time as he dealt with everyone's questions calmly. He also told a portion of his experiences in the Two-World Mountain, which was partially true and partially false. The true portion was all about the strange, life-devouring beasts in the Two-World Mountain. As for the parts that seemed shocking, he calmly glossed over them. Even though Jianchen spoke very casually, everyone present knew that the dangers and dangers hidden within had far exceeded their imaginations. After the meal, the prodigies of the dozen organizations all took out the generous gifts they had brought with them and presented them to Jianchen to express their gratitude. At the same time, they wanted to befriend him. Back in the Two-World Mountain, these people were not as enthusiastic as they were now. At that time, even they were not sure if they would be able to walk out of the Two-World Mountain safely. As for Yang Yutian, they were also worried that he might die in the Two-World Mountain. Hence, their attitudes were reserved. Now that they had made it out of the Two-World Mountain successfully and had prepared a path of retreat, they clearly had to consider things in the longer term now that their lives were no longer in danger. They all wanted to rope in a prodigy, like Yang Yutian, who possessed both extraordinary talent and battle prowess. Of course, what truly tempted them was the fact that Yang Yutian was an independent cultivator right now. The generous gifts they gave him were just some supreme, grade divine crystals, various heavenly resources, pills, and so on. Someone even gave him a book on the cultivation notes of a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. After all, in their eyes, Jianqin was only a mid-divine king. The gifts they gave him were extremely attractive to any divine king, let alone the fact that they were in the dark star world where resources were scarce. As a result, the gifts were even more valuable. Jianqin really did not want these gifts, but he found it difficult to turn them down, so he could only accept them reluctantly. I suggest that we hold a grand banquet for Yang Yutian in 3 days' time and invite all the organizations in the 100 Saint City to participate so that we can celebrate Brother Yang Yutian's safe return. At this moment, Jin Hong made a suggestion. All the prodigies at the table fell into a temporary silence when he said that. The light in the eyes of many of them flickered. They wanted to say something, but they hesitated. This was because they felt that Jin Hong's suggestion was making a mountain out of a molehill. In their eyes, they were indeed indebted to Yang Yutian's sacrifice in Two-World Mountain. However, there were different degrees of kindness. Yang Yutian's kindness was not particularly great in their eyes. They just needed to give him some benefits. If they did not despise Yang Yutian's low status as an independent cultivator, or if they wanted to rope him in or befriend him, they would have paid a personal visit and expressed their gratitude. However, if they wanted to hold a grand banquet in the 100 Holy City that all the forces participated in to celebrate Yang Yutian's return, then they would be crossing the line. If Yang Yutian had a powerful background, they would not be able to find fault with Jin Hong's suggestion. However, he was an independent cultivator who did not belong to any sect. This made the prodigies at the table a little unhappy. Ha, good. Brother Jin Hong's suggestion is good. I, Ping Sheng, represent the Emperor Lotus Sword sect and will do my best to assist Brother Yang Yutian in holding a banquet. The silence lasted for a short moment. Ping Sheng from the Emperor Lotus Sword sect took the lead to express his full support. With someone taking the lead, the prodigies at the table could only smile and express their agreement and support. Since they could come here in person, it showed their attitude. Naturally, it was impossible for them to disagree. First of all, Jin Hong was the one who made the suggestion. Without too much of a conflict of interest, they would not offend Jin Hong for no reason. Secondly, these people had the intention of winning over or befriending Jianqin. Naturally, they would not cause Jianqin's disgust over such a small matter. I appreciate everyone's kindness. However, regarding the banquet, please don't. Jianqin refused at the first moment. However, under the persuasion of Jin Hong, He-Chan-Chan, and the prodigies at the scene, his objection seemed a little weak. The grand banquet was decided just like that. This news was spread to the various forces in the 100 Saint City at the fastest speed. Among these forces, almost all those who acknowledged Jianqin's kindness in their hearts gathered in the heavenly Crane Temple. The remaining people clearly did not take Jianqin seriously. They all thought that Jianqin deserved what he had done and sacrificed in the Two-World Mountain. Hence, when they received the news of a banquet for Jianqin, more than half of the forces immediately sneered. I don't know what's wrong with Jin Hong. He actually wants to hold a grand banquet for a mere rogue cultivator with great fanfare. He even wants all of us to participate. If it weren't for the fact that he's no match for us and that he's the Grand Exalt successor, I really want to go over and slap him to death. Jin Hong, oh, Jin Hong, do you think that we're still in the Two-World Mountain and that you're in charge of everything? Now that we've successfully taken back the 100 Saint City, The alliance we formed before we came in no longer exists. Although you have the halo of the Grand Exalt successor, you no longer have the right to interfere with us. As for this so-called banquet, it's really laughable and extremely stupid. Aye. Similar voices echoed through the divine halls in the various regions of the 100 Saint City. Many prodigies scoffed at Jin Hong's suggestion. Of course, there were a few exceptions. A young man sat on a throne in a violet divine hall. He held an invitation in his hand as he sank into his thoughts. A while later, he smiled and murmured, Jin Hong is clearly trying to befriend Yang Yutian. The participation of over a dozen other organizations is clearly because they've become interested in Yang Yutian. However, Yang Yutian does have some ability. The fact that he can make it here means that he's not even 1,000 years old. He's even more monstrous than the prodigies nurtured by the peak organizations in the saints' world to reach such a level of cultivation at such a young age, yet his battle prowess is so great. According to his performance in the Two-World Mountain, Yang Yutian's overall strength is probably not much weaker than Jin Hong's. Chapter 2848. The prodigies who had come to visit the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall had all left. Only Jin Hong, Jianqin, and He Qianqian remained. Now that the banquet had ended long ago, Jin Hong clearly wanted to leave as well. However, he seemed rather hesitant. He looked at Jianqin as if he wanted to ask something, but he did not say it in the end. In reality, he had always been curious about what Jianqin possessed, or what was the reason why the power of his bloodline would become uncontrollably restless whenever he approached Jianqin. As a matter of fact, it even seemed to yearn for something. This question had already existed in his mind back in the Two-World Mountain. It was just that everyone had no choice back then. They did not know whether they could make it out of the Two-World Mountain alive, so they did not have the time to care about this. As a result, he could only bury his doubts. Only now that he had settled down did he feel the urge to unravel the mystery again. However, Jin Hong had his own principles as well. He hesitated over the true reason why his bloodline had become restless. Perhaps it was something extremely important to Jianqin. If he asked recklessly, it would be very inappropriate. It would be terrible if he ended up causing a misunderstanding. He was a member of the Wolf Clan, so he was born with a sharp sense of smell. Coupled with the fact that he had obtained the Grand Exalt's legacy, his sense of smell had expanded once again. Through his keen sense of smell, he could clearly tell that Jianqin was someone worth befriending. As a result, he wanted to befriend him long ago. He did not want to make things difficult for Jianqin because of this matter, which would lead to a distance between them. After hesitating for a while, Jin Hong chose to keep his curiosity to the bottom of his heart. He bid farewell to Jianqin and He Qianqian before leaving the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Yang Yutian, Jin Hong seems to be interested in you. He Qianqian noticed Jin Hong's expression and turned to look at Jianqin with a faint smile. Perhaps. Jianqin did not comment. He obviously understood why Jin Hong hesitated. Clearly, he had been attracted by the droplet of essence blood from the ancient Sky Wolf. He understood that it was impossible for Jin Hong to know about the droplet of essence blood within him. However, through the attraction of the essence blood, he could clearly send a message, allowing Jin Hong to understand that he possessed a fortuitous encounter that was clearly a fortuitous encounter for him. If it were anyone else, they probably would have tried to take it for themselves regardless of the price long ago. Yet Jin Hong remained calm the entire time. He Qianqian's Jin Hong did not feel any hostility or desire. This instead made Jianqin see him in a new light. He had seen far too many schemes in the saints' world. At the same time, he had seen far too many examples of people betraying their friends and family for cultivation resources. There were very few people as righteous as Jin Hong. At this moment, He Qianqian's voice rang out again. The Dark Star Realm has been rather unstable recently. Don't leave the 100 Saints City for now. The enmity between our 100 Saints City and the 7th Divine Hall has expanded. If it were someone else, it wouldn't matter. The Dark Star race wouldn't care. However, you're different. With your talent, you'll probably be hunted down by the 7th Divine Hall as soon as you leave the 100 Saint City. Afterwards, He Qian took the initiative to describe what she had experienced after leaving the Two-World Mountain. She described a conflict with the 7th Divine Hall in great detail so that Jianqin could gain a clear understanding of the current situation. The 5th Divine Hall is only protecting our 100 Saints city temporarily. If we can't provide them with what they need, they'll abandon us sooner or later. As a result, it's best if we don't leave the 100 Saint City before the 5th Divine Hall truly promises to protect us, He Qian said sternly. He Qian said with a serious face. From her expression, it was not difficult to see that she was worried about the future. Jianqin's face became rather strange when he heard that. He seemed to smile. I really never thought that you would experience so many things after leaving the Two-World Mountain. You almost died to the hands of the 7th Divine Hall's Hallmaster. But don't worry, I won't leave the 100 Saint City for no reason. Jianqin paused before continuing. Oh, right, I heard that your Tianhe clan is located on the Ice Pole Plain, one of the 7 sacred plains. Can you tell me about the Ice Pole Plain? For example, are there any other powerful organizations on the Ice Pole Plain apart from the renowned Ice Goddess Hall? He Qian sat down on a chair and said in a self-deprecating manner, the 7 sacred plains? That was a thing of the past. Now, the Ice Pole State only existed in name as one of the 7 great sacred states. Even the Ice Goddess Hall that holds up the entire Ice Pole Plain has been taken over by a small organization that even our Tianhe clan did not take seriously in the past. Jianqin was stunned when he heard that. What? A small organization can actually take over the Ice Goddess Hall? Although I've never seen the Ice Goddess Hall, I've heard that it's an extremely powerful god artifact. Even a small organization can take over it. Why hasn't your Tianhe clan done anything? Is your Tianhe clan no longer the opponent of that small organization? Oh, right. What's that small organization called? He Qian sneered. That organization is called the Moon God Hall. It said that the Moon God Hall did not even have a single Grand Prime back then. The most powerful person, the Hall Master, was only a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. An organization like that can't even make it into the top 20 on the Ice Pole Plain. In the eyes of our Tianhe clan, it's only a small organization. After all, our Tianhe clan is the 3rd most powerful organization on the Ice Pole Plain. Ignoring the Ice Goddess Hall, there are a total of 18 peak organizations on the Ice Pole Plain. Every single one of them has a Grand Prime. Our Sky Crane Divine Hall is ranked 3rd out of so many peak organizations, which is more than enough to demonstrate the strength of our Sky Crane clan. Even if the Moon God Hall has a Grand Prime now, it's only a low Grand Prime. With the strength of our Tianhe clan, destroying the Moon God Hall is as easy as raising a hand. When she reached there, a sliver of disdain appeared on He Qian's face. Clearly, she did not take the Moon God Hall seriously. As for why our Tianhe Divine Hall hasn't taken over the Ice Goddess Hall, it's obviously a form of respect towards the Ice Goddess Hall. After all, it's a symbol of our Ice Pole Plain, as well as the glory of our Ice Pole Plain. Even though it's declined now, it's still sacred and inviolable in our Tianhe Divine Hall. He Qian's voice became quieter and quieter. In the end, even she did not believe what she had just said. The light in her eyes flickered. After a moment of hesitation, she said with uncertainty, perhaps the Moon God Hall is able to take over the Ice Goddess Hall because, logically speaking, the Ice Goddess Hall is the pride of our Ice Pole Plain. It cannot be blasphemed. However, even though there are so many peak organizations more powerful than the Moon God Hall on the Ice Pole Plain, no one has stepped forward to stop them. Instead, they have allowed the Moon God Hall to take over the Ice Goddess Hall. That doesn't make sense. Jianqin became rather speechless. Originally, he wanted to learn more about the Ice Goddess Hall and the Moon God Hall from He Qian. After all, one of them was related to his sister, Changyang Mingyue, while the other was related to Fairy Haoyue. However, He discovered that although He Qian was from the Ice Pole Plain, she did not know as much as he did. Chapter 2849. Afterwards, Jianqin asked He Qian for some more information. He mainly wanted to understand the situation of the Moon God Hall and Ice Goddess Hall. Unfortunately, the information he obtained was limited. After all, almost all information related to the Ice Goddess Hall and Moon God Hall was classified. Primordial Realm experts would probably know a little more, but it was indeed very difficult for He Qian to come into contact with such information with her strength. Yang Yutian, since you're so interested in the Ice Pole Plain, do you plan on joining our Tianhe clan? With your talent, you'll definitely receive great nurturing from our Tianhe clan if you join us. It won't be difficult for you to become a chaotic prime in the future. He Qian stared at Jianqin as the light in her eyes flickered. She was not an idiot. She had already seen Jianqin's potential in the Two-World Mountain. Many peak clans and organizations in the Saints' world would naturally try to rope him in with such talent. This was because if someone like him was nurtured properly, he might become a pillar of support for the clan at a certain time in the future. He might even become a tree that could support the entire clan. Jianqin smiled. I don't plan on joining any organization for now, but I do look forward to the Ice Pole Plain very much. I want to see it for myself. After all, not only is the Ice Pole Plain one of the 7 sacred plains of the Saints' world, but I've also heard that it's covered in glaciers and snow white. It snows all year round. Cultivating in such a cold environment can greatly suppress the growth of inner demons and avoid the risk of cultivation deviation. Jianqin and He Qian conversed in the Tianhe Divine Hall. However, at this moment, an old over-god servant of the Tianhe clan hurried over. His face was filled with joy. Young miss, good news! It's great news! The 7th Divine Hall has already removed the seal on the teleportation formation. We can all use the teleportation formation freely now, the old man said excitedly from afar. From far away, the old servant said with an excited tone. His face was flushed red. It was clear that he was extremely excited. He Qian was stunned at first when she heard the news. She seemed to be unable to react, but in the next moment, she stood up excitedly and asked in a hurry, What did you say? The seal on the teleportation array has been lifted. Are you sure this is true? It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Young miss, there's no way it's fake. There's definitely no way it's fake. There are already people leaving the Dark Star realm through the teleportation formation. The old servant said with a certain tone. He Qian was overjoyed. Although the teleportation array of their 100 Saint City was about to be repaired, and even if the Dark Star race did not unseal the teleportation array, it would not affect the 100 Saints City too much. At the critical moment, they could still use the teleportation array in the 100 Saint City to reach the exit directly. However, the real significance of unsealing the teleportation array was not this. The important thing was that it could indirectly represent the attitude of the 7th Divine Hall. The 7th Divine Hall was willing to open the teleportation array for them to enter and exit freely. This meant that the 7th Divine Hall would not target the 100 Saints City again in the short term. At least they would be safe for the time being. At the same time, it also proved the 5th Divine Temple's determination to protect them, allowing them to understand the power of the 5th Divine Temple. The 5th Divine Hall really has done it. I never thought they would get the 7th Divine Hall to reopen the teleportation array so quickly, He Qian murmured to herself. He Qian muttered to herself, but soon she seemed to have thought of something. The joy on her face quickly faded, and her expression became solemn. But the thing that the 5th Divine Hall needs. Sigh, I can only send the news back and let the family decide. At this moment, He Qian could no longer be bothered with Jianqin. She immediately took out a feather from her space ring before cutting her finger and dripping a droplet of blood on it. This was a special communication method that belonged to the Tianhe clan. It would fuse the message into the droplet of blood, and with the feather as a medium, It was impossible for 10,000 people to copy it. Immediately send people out and send the news back to the clan. He Qian passed the feather to the old servant and ordered. The old servant replied politely before immediately carrying out the orders. At the same time, the various peak organizations in the 100 Saint City all received the news that the teleportation array had been unsealed. They were overjoyed and immediately began to write letters, sending people back to the Saints' world. Just in case, a few organizations even wrote many secret letters and sent many cultivators to deliver them. Immediately, over 1,000 cultivators charged out of the 100 Saint City. Every single one of them carried a secret letter before hurrying to Anya City as quickly as they could. They left through the teleportation array in Anya City. A huge swirl of energy hung in the sky in the depths of the two-world mountain. The swirl of energy was the only passage between the two worlds. The area where the passageway was located was the only safe zone in the two-world mountain. It was shrouded in a layer of powerful energy that completely isolated the thick fog in the two-world mountain. At the same time, it also kept all the life-sucking beasts outside. The formation of this place came from the hands of a Grand Exalt. There were rules set down by a Grand Exalt, so the peace had never been disturbed throughout all these years. At this moment, the ancient teleportation array that seemed to have been silent for a very long time suddenly lit up with dazzling light near the passage. Cultivators were sent over one by one. They looked around first, and when they saw the huge passage in the sky, they could not help but cheer. "We've made it through successfully. Fantastic, we can finally leave. The people of the Dark Star race can't come here. As soon as they appear here, they'll be killed by a power in outer space. Since we've made it here, it means we're safe. This isn't a scheme of the Dark Star race. They're really willing to let us go." A portion of the cultivators had been sent over by the 100 Saint City, while a portion of them did not belong to the 100 Saint City. They had been teleported over from other cities of the Dark Star race. After all, the several dozen peak organizations in the 100 Saint City only made up a small portion of the cultivators who were active in the Dark Star race. Most of them came from other organizations in the Saints' world, medium organizations, independent cultivators, and so on. After cheering, they did not hesitate at all. They all shot into the sky and vanished into the passage in the end. On the other side of the passage was one of the 5 remaining sacred lands of the Spirit's world, the Dark Star continent. At this moment, within Star Origin City on the Dark Star continent, there was also a huge energy vortex suspended in the air. Many figures were either standing in the air or sitting in the air. They were gathered around the tunnel, and their bodies were emitting a vast and mighty aura like the sea. These people were all chaotic primes, and they had already traveled quite a long distance on their path as chaotic primes. Most of them were at the 4th heavenly layer or higher. There were very few below the 4th heavenly layer. Chapter 2850. There were several dozen chaotic primes gathered around the tunnel. They did not converse with one another. They either rested with their eyes closed or stared at the tunnel without blinking at all. It was as if they wanted to see through the tunnel formed by the whirlpool of energy and see what was inside. Of course, there were far more chaotic primes gathered around the tunnel. Behind them, divine halls hovered in the air. Every single divine hall flowed with dazzling light as they gave off the might of God artifacts. There were also a few dozen divine palaces, and almost all of them were mid-grade divine artifacts. There were even 2 divine palaces that were high-grade divine artifacts among them. High-quality God artifacts were usually in the hands of Grand Primes. As a matter of fact, even some low-level Grand Primes did not possess God artifacts like that. They were supreme treasures in the Saints' world. As a matter of fact, high-quality God artifacts could even be used to protect a few peak organizations. This was more than enough to demonstrate the value and power of high-quality God artifacts. The chaotic primes gathered around the tunnel would glance past the 2 high-quality God artifacts from time to time. Their gazes would be filled with respect and fear, as well as a sliver of desire and greed that they did their best to hide from the depths of their hearts. Clearly, the two divine halls had piqued the desire of many people, but no one dared to fight over them. This was because the two high-quality god artifacts belonged to the Ashwolf clan and Hao Jia respectively. In order to ensure the safety of their young master, Jin Hong, an ancestor of the Ashwolf clan, had personally come to escort him. He was currently in the Divine Hall. As for Hao Jia's Divine Hall, although they did not send an ancestor like the Ashwolf clan, there were no experts who dared to target Hao Jia across the entire Saints world. At this moment, there were several hundred organizations gathered around the passageway. There were peak organizations that possessed grand primes and first-rate organizations that only had chaotic primes. They were all gathered here. They were all waiting for the news from the Dark Star realm to spread. Among the experts present, there were already expressions of worry and worry. They did not know exactly what had happened in the Dark Star realm, nor did they know what the situation was like. They had already completely lost contact with the Dark Star realm. Even though they had sent people in later on, they were trapped at the entrance due to the teleportation formations not being able to be used. In the end, they could only helplessly return. Many of the chaotic primes present sensed that something was wrong because the Two-World Mountain was directly related to their interests. If something happened to the benefits of the Two-World Mountain, it would be a great loss to them and the sects and clans behind them. At this time, the huge energy vortex hanging in the air suddenly surged. It was very slight, and if one did not pay attention, it would be very difficult to notice. However, the people gathered in the surroundings were chaotic primes. Their senses were extremely great, so even the minute changes in the surroundings could not escape their senses. At that moment, all the chaotic primes in the surroundings opened their eyes. They all stared at the energy vortex. Figures appeared one after another from the divine halls, hovering in the air behind them. There were men and women, old and young. Their presences were vast and extremely powerful. In the next moment, a cultivator suddenly fell out of the passageway between the two realms. The light in the eyes of all the chaotic primes in the surroundings immediately shone brightly with this person's return. This was because this person was not one of the people who had been sent in later on to investigate. This meant that this person had definitely returned from the Dark Star realm. He definitely knew about the latest news. Behind them, the powerful figures that emerged from the Divine Temple also arrived near the passageway between the two worlds in a single step. However, just as they were about to grab the cultivator who had just come out of the passageway and question him, more people suddenly fell out of the passageway between the two worlds. Just like that, people constantly returned from the Dark Star realm like dumplings. There were so many of them that they reached over 10,000 very soon, and it did not stop there. All the chaotic primes who had been waiting there for several months became rather stunned by this sight. Before, they had been bitterly hoping that someone would return from the Dark Star realm so that they could understand the exact situation of the Dark Star realm. Even if just a single person returned, it would be fine. However, they had never thought that so many people would return all of a sudden, which left them rather unprepared. However, they found their disciples from the crowd very soon. As a result, they all waved their sleeves and used their terrifying cultivation to take their disciples away. The return of these people also revealed the latest news from the Dark Star realm. The organizations that did not take part in the construction of the 100 Saint City or had nothing to do with the 100 Saint City were not affected too much. However, the peak organizations that belonged to the 100 Saint City all frowned when they received the news from their clansmen. There were even some hot-tempered people who could not help but curse aloud. Humph, they're actually so arrogant in a tiny place like this. If it weren't for the fact that Old Man couldn't enter, we would definitely wipe out the entire Dark Star realm. What? The Dark Star realm has actually killed so many of our disciples? This is preposterous. This is simply preposterous. A mere small clan actually dares to offend our Star clan. The Dark Star realm has gone too far. The so-called seventh divine hall really does deserve to die. And the fifth hall has actually made such a rude request of us. Do they really think they're something? Aren't they afraid of being slapped to death by Old Man when they come out in the future? The items that the Dark Star realm needs have already reached the God tier. Our clan has no lack of pills and heavenly resources at that level. As a matter of fact, we can take out quite a few of them. It's just that we can't take them in. The passageway between the two worlds is restricted by the laws of Grand Exalts. We can't take anything beyond that. The fifth hall has given us a problem. We can't afford to lose our foundation in the Dark Star realm, or the losses will be far too great. This matter is clearly not something we can deal with. Let's report it to the Ancestor. The chaotic primes all spoke out. While they were furious, they also felt extremely helpless. In the end, they all sent the news back to their clans and asked their ancestors to make a decision. A Grand Prime of the Ashwolf clan immediately expressed his opinion. Our Ashwolf clan has plenty of the items that the fifth hall wants, but we can't take any of them in. It doesn't matter if we lose our foundation in the Dark Star realm as long as our Qilin son returns safely. The ancestor of the Tianhe clan bathed in a layer of pure white light within the ice pole plane, so his appearance was obscured. He replied, "Inform the clansmen of the Dark Star realm that the clan is powerless against the fifth hall's request. Tell them to do everything they can to collect the items they need during this period of time." With that, the ancestor of the Tianhe clan sighed gloomily and said, "Water of Tao origin can only be formed where Grand Exalts have died after a series of natural changes. Without the water of Tao origin, some of the sacred grounds that our Tianhe clan uses to nurture the younger generation won't be able to function. This will be quite a loss to the clan." Chapter 2851. Similarly, in the Tianhe clan, in a splendid hall that was decorated with gold and jade, an old man with white hair and a youthful complexion, whose entire body emitted an immortal temperament, was sitting cross-legged on a cold jade bed. The frigid iced jade bed was clearly extremely cold. The ice-cold air that it emitted froze the entire palace into an ice cave. Moreover, there was a cold air in the form of fog that was endlessly emitted from the bed. The fog surrounded the old man's body, causing the old man to appear even more celestial. The old man was the greatest great elder of the Tianhe clan. He was a ninth heavenly layer chaotic prime and possessed great authority. In the Tianhe clan, his authority was only second to the Grand Primes. At this moment, the old man held a strand of Bayu's hair in confusion. He murmured, "Strange. Qian is currently in the Dark Star clan, so why has she suddenly sent someone to ask me about this? This isn't something a mere divine king like her should know. Since this girl has specially sent someone back to the clan from the Dark Star world to ask for information, it means that she needs these things right now. Although I don't know what she wants to do, she must have some intentions. Whatever, it's not like it's a secret anyway. Since she wants it, I'll give it to her." Although the Hinyu Plains ranking on the Saints' World had dropped drastically after the destruction of the Poseidon Palace several million years ago, there were still over a dozen peak organizations on the plane. The Jade Alchemy sect was ranked second among these top forces. This ranking made the Jade Pill sect renowned on the Hinyu Plain. At this moment, several great elders of the chaotic primes gathered together in the Jade Pill sect that was filled with the fragrance of pills. They all frowned in thought as they discussed with one another. They were all troubled. Difficult, difficult, difficult. The passageway between the two worlds to the world of the fallen beast was personally cast down by Grand Exalts. Even with our mastery of pills, creating our own pill recipes is a piece of cake for us. We can even change the appearance of many low-grade pills at will, turning them into regular pills. However, these methods can only fool a few early Grand Primes at most. Before the laws set down by Grand Exalts, it's like showing off before an expert. But what should we do? It's not like you don't know that the Heaven-Splitting Clan on the Nine Clouds Plain and the Heaven Sect on Planet Vastness have ordered a batch of 12 cycle life and death pills from our Jade Pill sect. High-class pills like the life and death pills are extremely difficult to refine. Not only is the success rate low, but it's also very difficult for them to reach the peak of the 12 cycle life and death pills. Only by adding some water of life from the Dark Star race can we hope to refine 12 cycle life and death pills. If we lose our business in the Dark Star world, it'll be very difficult to collect more water of life. Yeah, without the water of life, we won't be able to refine the 12 cycle life and death pills, and we won't be able to complete our deal with the Heaven-Splitting Clan on the Nine Clouds Plain and the Heaven Sect on Planet Vastness. According to the agreement, our Jade Pill sect will have to pay several times the compensation. That's a huge loss. It's not just the 12 revolutions life and death pill. Many of the high-grade divine pills we refine cannot be separated from some of the materials in the Dark Star world. After all, the Two-World Mountain was created by the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit Clan. Every blade of grass and wither contains extremely high-grade life force. There are even some heavenly resources that contain some fragmented laws of life. These are all excellent materials for refining various types of pills. Firstly, they can increase the success rate of the pills, and secondly, they can increase the effects of the pills. This matter affects our Jade Pill sect far too much. There's nothing we can do. Let's report this to the ancestors. Even if we have to pay a great price, we have to protect our businesses in the Dark Star world. Very soon, the two Grand Primes of the Jade Pill sect received the news and immediately emerged from seclusion. After understanding the situation in detail, they both sank into their thoughts. After a long while, one of the great ancestors spoke. No matter what, we have to protect our Jade Pill sect's business in the Dark Star realm. If we lose the Dark Star realm, then we can only beg other forces to help us collect these treasures in the Dark Star realm. However, in that case, our Jade Pill sect will inevitably be controlled by others, and we will also be blackmailed by them. Go and invite esteemed Ching Mo of the Pill King's clan, the Biden Venerable of the Pill Nurturing clan, and the One Pill ancestor of the ancient Pill sect. At the same time, contact the upper echelon of the Heavenly Demon religion. Our Jade Pill sect will offer a high price to purchase 100,000 pure souls from them. We only need a peak divine king. We want to create another pill. The news from the 100 Saints City directly alarmed several dozen peak organizations in the Saints world. The ancestors of many organizations personally came forward to ask about the matter, as many of the resources produced in the Dark Star world were things they needed. As a matter of fact, there were even some special resources that were indispensable to some peak clans. However, quite a few of these resources just happened to be irreplaceable, and they only came from the Dark Star world. As a result, the various peak organizations treated this matter with great importance. However, in the end, most of the peak organizations were powerless against the Fifth Hall's request. Perhaps they had a way to do it, but the price was just too great. It was so great that it had completely exceeded the value of the Dark Star world. As a result, only a few organizations managed to come up with a plan in the end, and they were currently carrying out their plans. Of course, only those peak powers within the 100 holy cities were feeling worried. There were even more large powers that had not joined the 100 holy cities that were not affected in the slightest. On the contrary, those powers were impatient and quickly dispatched a group of people with a vast amount of divine crystals and all kinds of resources to enter the Dark Star realm in batches. This was because the Dark Star world had sent out news that they needed a large amount of divine crystals, an extremely large amount of divine crystals. In exchange, they were willing to provide a portion of their precious items. Just as all the peak organizations in the Saints world were mobilizing their forces for the Fifth Hall's request, the person who started it all, Jian Qin, was currently holding a joyous reception at the entrance of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. He was receiving the representatives of various organizations who had come to the banquet. The banquet was led by Jin Hong and He Tiantian, and it was organized with the cooperation of over a dozen organizations. They invited everyone to celebrate Jianqin's safe return. Naturally, not everyone in the 100 Saint City was willing to accept the banquet. As a result, only 2/3 of the organizations actually came. Chapter 2852. The young master of the Emperor Lotus Sword sect, Ping Yi, has arrived. The young miss of the Herman clan, Man Yunjun, has arrived. The young master of the Baijian clan, Baijian Xiong, has arrived. The direct disciple of the Heaven sect, Mo Shang, has arrived. At the entrance of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, the representatives of many top forces in the 100 Saints city stepped into the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall one after another as the welcoming attendants shouted. As for Jianqin, he received everyone in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Even though he knew that these people all represented peak organizations that reigned over an entire region of the Saints' world, he did not have a clear idea of who was stronger among these peak organizations. He Tiantian explained some of the details of these organizations to Jianqin secretly, as if she was afraid that Jianqin would be careless. Yang Yutian, you have to be careful when dealing with these people. Don't offend them, because there are a few organizations that even our Heavenly Crane clan fears. In particular, this person called Mo Shang is from the Heaven sect. It's the greatest organization on planet Vastness, one of the 81 great planets of the Saints' world. This is because an ancestor of the Heaven sect is a terrifying existence at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of Grand Prime. At the same time, he's the planet lord of planet Vastness. He's an authoritative figure, and I've even heard a great elder of our clan mention that the strongest ancestor of the Heaven sect, the planet lord of planet Vastness, is already attempting to break through to an even higher level of cultivation. Once that ancestor really does reach the 7th heavenly layer of Grand Prime, the Heaven sect status in the entire Saints world will increase by quite a lot. Jianqin's heart skipped a beat when he heard the Heaven sect. He immediately thought of the great elder of the Heaven sect, Zhan Yun, who called himself the Heaven sect on planet Vastness. He also learnt from Zhan Yun that the Heaven sect had close ties with the Myriad Bone Guild. However, the Heaven sect clearly feared the heartless child of the Myriad Bone Guild very much. Hao, Jia, Haoren, and young Master Haochen have arrived. At this moment, the attendant's voice rang out again. Upon hearing Hao Jia's name, He Tiantian's expression changed slightly, revealing a look of surprise. Someone from Hao Jia actually came, and its young masters Hao Ran and Hao Chen. Yang Yutian, listen carefully. If you can offend more than 90% of the top forces in the 100 Saint City, then Hao Jia is one of the forces that you must never offend. Moreover, the people who came from Hao Jia this time are not insignificant people. They are the direct disciples of Hao Jia. Their status in Hao Jia is not ordinary. Could this Hao Jia be even stronger than the vast expanse Star Heaven sect? Oh, right. I heard that Hao Jia seems to be from the Prosper Plane. The Prosper Plane is one of the 7 sacred grounds of the Saints' world. Jianqin asked through a sound transmission. He was not unfamiliar with Haoren and Hao Chen. When he had just left the Two-World Mountain, he had saved the two of them as Gu Qi, preventing a disaster for them. Otherwise, who knew if the two of them would still be alive today? However, there was still a gap between the two of them when compared to He Tiantian, Ping Yixing, and the others. However, their status was clearly much higher. When he asked He Tiantian through a sound transmission, Jianqin also went up to receive them warmly. After exchanging some pleasantries with Haoren and Hao Chen, he invited the two of them into the hall. Fellow Yang Yutian, I have already learned about everything that happened in the Two-World Mountain from Zi Xiaoji. It was all thanks to an expert like fellow Yang Yutian that we were able to leave the Two-World Mountain successfully. Otherwise, even if we were able to leave the Two-World Mountain successfully, we would have suffered heavy casualties. As for the 100 Saint City, I'm afraid we wouldn't have enough power to take it back. Haoren, and Hao Chun were amiable. They did not put on any airs of arrogance and wore gentle smiles on their faces. However, while Jianchen recognized them, they did not recognize that Jianchen was Gu Qi, who had saved them in the Two-World Mountain. At this moment, He Qianqian's solemn voice also entered Jianchen's ears. Compared to the vast expanse Star Heaven sect, Hao Jia is indeed much stronger. Even in the Prosper Plane where experts are everywhere, Hao Jia is a superforce that no one dares to offend. It's all because Hao Jia produced an extremely powerful ancestor. He's known as the Flame Ancestor. It's because of the Flame Ancestor that Hao Jia has become a superforce that no one dares to offend on the Prosper Plane. Not only is the Flame Ancestor a 7th Heavenly Layer Grand Prime, but he's also a divine general of the Heavenly Palace of Bixing. He possesses an extremely great status in the Heavenly Palace of Bixing, where he can directly speak to the First Majesty. With a relationship like that, how can Hao Jia not be powerful? He Qianqian's eyes were filled with envy. With such a powerful background, even if his personal strength was not particularly monstrous, he would still be respected wherever he went. After understanding this, Jianchen could not help but glance at Haoren and Hao Chen. He immediately felt a sense of closeness with them. With his relationship with Ming Dong, the Hao family wasn't considered an outsider. Apart from Hao Jia, there's also the Celestial Thunder Clan that we cannot offend. Although the Celestial Thunder Clan's strength is equivalent to our Tianhe clan at most, or even slightly inferior, the Celestial Thunder Clan also possesses a great background. I've heard the Great Elder mention that behind the Celestial Thunder Clan is one of the 8 Archean clans, the Thor clan. He warned us, seriously, not to offend them unless we have no other choice. He Qianqian was stern. What she said was not a secret among peak organizations. It was basically all public information, so there was no taboo. It was just that regular cultivators could not come into contact with it. Jianchen was greatly shocked when he heard that. Naturally, he knew about Archean clans. There were only 8 of them across the entire Saints world, and every single one of them had existed for an extremely long time. They were extremely terrifying. This was because these clans had all given birth to Grand Exalts in the past. It was just that the Grand Exalt had passed away, but the clan had not been destroyed. They had also inherited many secret techniques and Supreme God artifacts from Grand Exalts. Aside from that, Archean clans possessed 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Primes as well. Only by fulfilling these conditions would they have the right to be revered as an Archean clan. Without any exaggeration, there was nothing in the entire Saints world that could make Archean clans fear apart from Grand Exalts. Even the Heaven-Splitting clan that possessed the Heaven-Splitting Ancestor, a 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Prime, paled in comparison to Archean clans because their heritage was on a completely different level. Chapter 2853. He Qianqian mainly introduced the Hao Jia and the Heavenly Thunder clan to Jianchen, as the 2 clans both possessed terrifying backgrounds. One was the Heavenly Palace of Bixing, while the other was an Archean clan. However, between the 2 forces, only the Hao family came to the banquet. The Heavenly Thunder clan did not come. Of course, there were a few other organizations in the 100 Saint City that even the Heavenly Crane clan feared aside from these 2 organizations. However, they paled in comparison to the Hao Jia and the Heavenly Thunder clan. He Qianqian only reminded Jianchen to be careful. She did not introduce them in too much detail. Very soon, the banquet formally began in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. As the main character of the day, Jianchen was destined to be the busiest day of his life. After saying some pleasantries, he walked around the hall with a cup of wine in his hand. He smiled as he toasted the people from various organizations humbly. Regardless of whether they were the leaders of an organization in the 100 Saint City, envoys or attendants, they were all guests. As long as they could make it, it was a form of recognition. As a result, Jianchen naturally did not lose his manners when dealing with guests. During this period of time, many organizations had already extended olive branches to Jianchen, either openly or secretly. They offered various great conditions in hopes of Jianqin joining their clans and promised him various benefits. In short, the conditions they offered were so great that any independent divine king cultivator would be tempted or even driven mad. Even some experts who had just reached the primordial realm would be tempted to a certain extent. Unfortunately, Jianqin was not a divine king. Instead, he was a primordial realm expert, and he was no ordinary primordial realm expert. Instead, he was wealthy enough to make even grand primes envious. As a result, he naturally did not take the conditions offered by these organizations seriously. They all used the excuse of not wanting to be restricted as an excuse to turn them down. Most of the reasons why these organizations were willing to attend the banquet was because they wanted to rope in Jianqin. They had all come prepared. Seeing how resources were not enough to tempt Jianqin, they all glanced at each other. Immediately, the women who had come with them all stood up. Every single one of them was a beauty that had been carefully selected. Both their appearances and figures were outstanding. They all approached Jianqin with enchanting smiles. Their breaths were like orchids, and their voices were clear as they spoke with Jianqin. Some of the women would even touch Jianqin slightly, whether it was intentional or not. Their gazes were dazed and filled with admiration. What had Jianqin not experienced now? In the face of such a scene, his face didn't turn red, and his heart didn't beat fast. He appeared calm and composed, and his feet moved lightly to avoid the attack. This scene was witnessed by Jin Hong and He Qianqian not far away. Jin Hong's expression didn't change in the slightest, but He Qianqian revealed a playful smile and said softly, "I didn't expect Yang Yutian to be more popular than I imagined. He actually obtained the favor of so many great powers. Now he even used the honey trap. Some of these women have practiced seduction techniques for a very long time. They're not good at battle, but they have endless tricks up their sleeves when it comes to seducing men. I wonder if Yang Yutian will be able to hold his ground." Don't worry, Yang Yutian is no ordinary person. Using these methods on Yang Yutian is destined to be a waste of effort, Jin Hong said indifferently. Jin Hong's expression was indifferent. He held a beast leg in his hand and began to eat it in big bites. Every time he took a bite, a rich vitality overflowed. This unknown beast leg was clearly taken from the life-devouring beast of Two World Mountain. He Qianqian looked at Jin Hong and said seriously, "Young Master Jin Hong, you've helped Yang Yutian time and time again. I don't think it's entirely because of Yang Yutian's contributions in Two World Mountain. You should also have thoughts of roping in Yang Yutian, right?" Jin Hong thought seriously for a moment before saying, "I've never thought about roping in Yang Yutian because my clan might not be suitable for Yang Yutian. However, in my opinion, your Tianhe clan has a very good chance." "Oh, tell me about it. What kind of bargaining chip does our Tianhe clan have to throw out to attract a prodigy like Yang Yutian? If we can really recruit Yang Yutian into our clan, it'll be a great contribution," He Qianqian said. "No organization in the Saints world would give up on a genius with monstrous talent. For example, Yang Yutian would be fought over by various organizations." Jin Hong glanced at He Qianqian deeply and said, "The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Now that Yang Yutian is in your Tianhe clan, won't it be easy for you to rope in him? If you personally take action to capture Yang Yutian's heart, the chances of success would obviously be extremely high." He Qianqian was clearly stunned. She smiled bitterly. "Young Master Jin Hong, I'm different from you. You're already the young patriarch of the clan, so your status is extremely special. Even the Grand Prime ancestor takes special care of you. What about me? I'm just a clansman with some talent in the Tianhe clan. In terms of talent, I'm not as good as you, and my status is nowhere near as good as yours. For clansmen like me, my fate and marriage will be decided by the seniors of the clan. Even if I do end up with a husband in the future, he'll definitely be a member of a large organization. Yang Yutian and I are people from two different worlds after all. The banquet ended and the guests dispersed. Very soon, the Tianhe Divine Hall recovered its usual peace. He Qian arrived at Jianqin and looked at Jianqin with an ambiguous smile. She said, "There were so many beautiful women at the banquet. Did you not take a liking to any of them?" Jianqin remained calm. He said seriously, "In my heart, there are only two things, cultivation and becoming stronger. There's no room for romantic relationships anymore. Furthermore, as a loose cultivator, I've experienced a lot more things than disciples of large clans like you. After experiencing so much, I've long since become indifferent to matters of love." He Qian stared at Jianqin strangely and smiled gently. People have emotions and desires. Even some old monsters who have cultivated for millions or even tens of millions of years can't let go of these emotions and desires. They'll still be captivated by them and go crazy over them. You're not even 1,000 years old. Yet you're saying that you've become indifferent to romantic relationships. Are you saying that this is a flaw in your personality? Or is it because of your talent? Jianqin didn't want to continue on this topic. He changed the topic. Almost everyone in your group has the 100 Calamity Divine King pill. The pill formula for refining the 100 Calamity Divine King pill shouldn't be anything precious, right? Hearing this, He Qian's eyes flashed. She asked, "You're not going to say that you want the pill formula for refining the 100 Calamity Divine King pill, are you?" Chapter 2854. He Qian seemed to have just realized Jianqin's thoughts. She said, "Yan Yutian, listen to me. Don't think about refining the 100 Calamity Divine King pellet by yourself. This pellet is far from as simple as you think it is." "Is that so? Then tell me about it in detail. What's so special about this 100 Calamity Divine King pellet?" Jianqin revealed an interested expression. He currently had over 30,000 divine king grasses in his possession. Moreover, these divine king grasses were all high-quality divine king grasses. In order to limit the strength of the cultivators of the outside world, the Dark Star race had never spread the high-quality divine king grasses. Perhaps even the large forces in the 100 Saints city still did not know about the existence of the high-quality divine king grasses. Therefore, he would not expose the high-quality divine king grasses in front of outsiders to avoid unnecessary trouble. However, if the divine king grasses did not turn into divine king pellets, they were useless items in the end. And if he wanted to turn them into 100 Calamity Divine King pellets without exposing the high-quality divine king grasses, he had to obtain the pellets to refine the pellets himself. Of course, the 100 Calamity Divine King pellets, refined from high-quality divine king grasses, should also remove the word 100 Calamity. He Qian began to explain, "Yang Yutian, do you know why the 100 Calamity Divine King pellets, refined from 100 Calamity grasses, can allow an ordinary cultivator to become a divine king expert in an extremely short amount of time? Why is it that a miraculous item like the 100 Calamity Divine King pellet that can greatly increase a cultivator's realm in a short amount of time, which even the vast saints world does not have, but a small world like the Dark Star realm does? Because its formation is related to the grand exalt of the Dark Star race that died back then?" Jianqin said. He Qian nodded. "That's right. The formation of the 100 Calamity grasses is indeed related to the grand exalt of the Dark Star race. Perhaps it's related to the ancient beast that transformed into the Dark Star realm as well. However, it's exactly because the 100 Calamity grasses are related to an expert like that makes it difficult to refine them into 100 Calamity Divine King pellets. That's because there's a mysterious and powerful power hidden within the 100 Calamity grass. Even the great elders of our clans don't know if it comes from the grand exalt of the Dark Star race or the ferocious beast that turned into the world of the fallen beast. However, whenever the 100 Calamity grasses are refined into 100 Calamity Divine King pellets, the power will erupt. It's so powerful that we can't resist it at all. Without the cultivation of a chaotic prime, it's impossible to suppress it, let alone refine it into a pill." Whether it's our Tianhe clan or some other peak organizations, we need two great elders who are chaotic primes to work together to refine the 100 Calamity Divine King pellets successfully. Without the cultivation of a chaotic prime, it's impossible to refine the 100 Calamity Divine King pellets. Even refining the pill is so difficult, let alone the fact that you need to add in various valuable medicinal ingredients. This is not something an independent cultivator should possess. Even many organizations with chaotic primes can't afford the resources needed to refine the Divine King pellets. This is because the costs and benefits of refining the 100 Calamity Divine King pellets are completely disproportionate. Only peak clans like us with foundations in the Darkstar race are forced to go through so much effort to refine the Divine King pellets to protect our interests. He Qian looked at Jianchen deeply and continued, Yang Yutian, I know it's a piece of cake for you to hunt down high-level, life-devouring beasts and exchange them for 100 calamity grasses with your strength. You can even obtain a large amount of Divine King grass in a short amount of time through this method. However, I still hope you can give all the Divine King grass to our Tianhe clan, because the Divine King grass is useless to you. You can't use it at all. Thank you for your explanation, Miss Qian, but I'm still interested in the pill recipe. I'm even willing to use 100 calamity grasses to exchange for the recipe. May I ask how much 100 calamity grasses I need for your Tianhe clan to be willing to give me the recipe? Jianchen had no intentions of changing his mind. It was not like he did not have chaotic primes. The Tianyuan clan had one. As for himself, if he broke through to the next layer of the chaotic body, he would be able to treat him as a chaotic prime. Seeing Jianchen's determination, He Qian knew it would be pointless no matter how she tried to persuade him. She sighed gently. All right, since you insist on the recipe, I'll ask for you. However, I can't decide on the recipe, and I can't take it out either. I need to send someone to ask the seniors of the clan. Afterwards, He Qian used a secret technique to send someone out to ask the upper echelon of the clan. Very soon, the reply from the outside world reached the 100 Saint City. He Qian received 2 messages. After reading the messages, she said to Jianchen rather helplessly, the clan has sent back news that the recipe for the 100 Calamity Divine King Pill was obtained by the clan at a great price. They have also signed an agreement that the recipe cannot be leaked. Jianchen frowned when he heard that. He had never thought that the pill recipe that basically every organization in the 100 Saint City possessed would be so difficult to obtain. It had taken him slightly by surprise. At this moment, He Qian continued, but there's another piece of news that you should be interested in. As she said that, He Qian picked up the second feather. After reading through the information inside using a secret technique, her face immediately changed. She was shocked, as if she had become stunned. Only a while later did she gradually return to her senses. Her chest heaved violently, which was enough to tell that she was not calm at all. Only after quite a while did she recover. After a moment of thought, she seemed to have made a decision in the end. With a flip of her hand, a jade slip immediately appeared in her hand. She passed some information on the jade slip to Jianchen and said at the same time, This is the information I obtained from a great elder of the clan. Regular cultivators don't have the right to know this. Remember to destroy it after reading it. Jianchen accepted the jade slip with some curiosity and sent the senses of his soul in. The jade slip recorded some matters on the ice pole plane. In particular, there was a relatively detailed introduction to the Ice Goddess Hall and Moon God Hall. The name Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall had appeared before as well. The rough idea was that the Ice Goddess had already died, and her corpse was in the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall and Wuhan, one of the 4 great protectors of the Ice Goddess Hall, had joined the Flame Reverend, a supreme expert. The Flame Reverend wanted the Ice Goddess corpse, so he used Nan Patian to take down the Ice Goddess Hall before trying to find the Ice Goddess corpse through Wuhan. Even though the various peak organizations on the ice pole plain understood the flame reverend's intentions, they were powerless to stop him. As a result, they could only watch as this happened. Even the experts who wanted the ice goddess corpse retreated in fright when they heard the flame reverend's name. This was because the flame reverend was a supreme expert who had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime. Even if all the peak organizations on the ice pole plane worked together, they would not be the flame reverend's opponent. However, Genshin also learnt from the Jade Slip that the flame reverend had been plotting for many years, but he was still unable to reach the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall. This was because the Ice Goddess Hall was a Grand Exalt's sovereign artifact. Even without the artifact spirit, the toughness and defenses of the Divine Hall could still block attacks from 9th heavenly layer Grand Primes. Destroying a god artifact like this required power on the level of Grand Exalts. Several decades ago, the daughter of the previous moon god of the Moon God Hall appeared silently. She was discovered by the Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nanpatian. They engaged in a great battle, and in the end, the daughter of the Moon God was heavily injured and captured. At this moment, another piece of news appeared in Genshin's head, immediately making Genshin's heart tighten. Fairy Haoyue was heavily injured and captured. At this moment, Genshin felt like he had been struck by lightning. His mind shook. The Fairy Haoyue had actually ended up in Nan Potion's hands, with her grievances with Nanpatian, who knew what would happen to her. Chapter 28:55. When he saw the last piece of news, Genshin became extremely excited. He felt extremely satisfied. Senior Mo Tianyan has actually killed his way to the Ice Pole Province. He even broke into the Ice Goddess Hall and killed the Hall Master of the Moon Goddess Hall, Nanpatian. Nanpatian was a great enemy of Fairy Haoyue. His death can be considered as revenge for Fairy Haoyue. However, I wonder how Fairy Haoyue is doing right now. Genshin thought. When he thought of how Fairy Haoyue's current situation was unknown, he began to worry. I hope nothing bad happens to Fairy Haoyue. Genshin prayed inside. He did not have many friends, and Fairy Haoyue just so happened to be one of them. At this very moment, he was so worried for Fairy Haoyue that he wanted nothing more than to immediately head to the Ice Pole Province. However, Siyu's current situation left him with no choice but to remain in the Dark Star Realm. That was because what had happened in the Ice Pole Province had already happened. If something really did happen to Fairy Haoyue, it would be very difficult for him to do anything even if he hurried over. However, the situation with the Dark Star clan was different. Siyu's life and death was completely in his hands. While Genshin was worried for Fairy Haoyue, He-Chan-Chan was not calm either. She seemed to have received a huge shock and was still in a state of shock. She absent-mindedly muttered, "The 3 ancestors of the Hoofing clan have actually all died. This can't be real, this can't be real." Hearing He-Chan-Chan's muttering, Genshin suppressed his worry for Fairy Haoyue and asked, "What sort of organization does the Hoofing clan belong to in the Ice Pole Province?" In the Ice Pole Province, the Hoofing clan is ranked 4th, second only to our Sky Crane clan. However, I've heard from the Grand Elders that although the Hoofing clan is ranked lower than our Tianhe clan, their strength is on par with our Tianhe clan. There isn't much of a difference. The reason why our Tianhe clan is ahead of the Hoofing clan is because our Grand Elders have an advantage over the Hoofing clan. He-Chan-Chan said somewhat unconsciously. The death of the 3 great ancestors of the Feng clan had a huge impact on her, causing her face to look somewhat pale. Who is the Empyrean Demon Lord? He can actually kill the 3 ancestors of the Hoofing clan. Those are 3 Grand Primes. Yet they died just like that. There is a difference in strength between the 2 clans. This means that the He-Feng clan and the Tianhe clan are on par with each other in terms of strength. Genshin wasn't too shocked by the fall of the 3 ancestors of the He-Feng clan. Instead, he was assessing the strength of the Tianhe clan. Mo Tianyan could easily wipe out the Hoofing clan, which ranked 4th, so it would not be difficult for him to wipe out the Tianhe clan. I wonder what Grand Prime Senior Emotianyan is, thought Jian Chen. After a moment of thought, he asked He Qian, Miss Chen, may I ask why you're showing me the information on the ice pole plain? He Qian took a deep breath and slowly calmed down her turbulent emotions. Very quickly, she suppressed all the thoughts in her mind. She once again regained her calm, and an ice-cold aura naturally spread out from her body. Aren't you interested in the information on the ice pole plain? In order to satisfy your desire, I specially asked the grand elders of the clan about this. Logically speaking, this information shouldn't be something I can come into contact with. It's only because I'm in the Dark Star world that the elders of the clan do their best to satisfy my needs. That's why I have this information, said He Qian. Miss Qian, you're exaggerating. It's also because of the Tianhe Divine Hall that I'm slightly curious about the ice pole plain. How am I interested? Jian Chen laughed involuntarily. The light in He Qian's eyes flickered. She stared at Jian Chen without blinking and said seriously, Yang Yutian, I may not be an extremely smart person, but don't think of me as such a fool. There are many organizations even more powerful than our Tianhe clan in the 100 Saint City. With your talent and battle prowess, you can join an organization even more powerful than our Tianhe clan. You'll be greatly valued no matter which organization you go to, yet you just happen to choose our Tianhe clan. Also, a few days ago, not long after your return to the Tianhe Divine Hall, you asked me about the information on the ice pole plain. You kept saying that you were only curious and wanted to know more about the ice pole plain. However, you didn't realize that your expression had already betrayed you. Your expression at that time was not an expression of curiosity at all. Instead, it was an expression of extreme care and concern. And one last thing. That day at the banquet, so many major clans threw you an olive branch and gave you generous conditions. Any one of those conditions possessed a fatal attraction to the Divine King, who was born as a loose cultivator. However, you weren't moved in the slightest. Even your gaze was incomparably clear the entire time. What does that mean? This means that the conditions offered by these great families are simply not enough to enter your eyes. Am I right? He Qian paused when she reached there. She looked at Jian Chen deeply and said, Yang Yutian, the reason why you chose to join our Tianhe clan back then was definitely not a coincidence. You did it on purpose, right? I'm very curious. Why did you choose our Tianhe clan? Miss Qian, you're overthinking things. I didn't choose your Tianhe clan for any particular reason. If I had to say something, it would be to have a backer in the Dark Star race. After all, I'm not familiar with the Dark Star race by myself. If I continued on my own, it might be difficult for me to move around. As for the olive branches offered by those clans, to be honest, I'm not interested in their conditions at all. Although I, Yang Yutian, am an independent cultivator, I obtained the legacy of a primordial realm expert by coincidence. Naturally, I have some wealth. Lastly, there's the ice pole plain. I'll be going there sooner or later, so I'm rather concerned about the news there. I can understand the ice pole plain beforehand, so that I can make plans for the future. Jian Chen replied with composure. He Qian said nothing more. She only stared at Jian Chen with shining eyes, as if she wanted to see through Jian Chen's eyes to the depths of his heart. She clearly doubted Jian Chen's words. Jian Chen also stared at He Qian. His face was filled with helplessness and innocence, as well as a bitter smile. However, He Qian's eyes were truly beautiful. Her eyes were incomparably bright. Her big eyes were like a pair of black gems. The radiance emitted from them seemed to be able to penetrate one's heart. Coupled with her beautiful and cold face that could cause the downfall of a nation, she had a fatal charm to men. At this moment, an old man who seemed like a caretaker walked in from outside. He reported, Miss, we've just received news that all organizations in the 100 Holy City are invited to the Pantheon of Gods. I know. You can leave. He Qian looked away. She no longer looked at Jian Chen. Instead, she looked towards the center of the 100 Holy City in the direction of the pantheon of gods. She said, "I don't care if you're telling the truth or not. As long as you haven't left the Dark Star world, you're still a member of our Tianhe clan. You can't do anything that harms our Tianhe clan." "Of course. Let's go. Let's go to the pantheon of gods." Gathering everyone in the pantheon of gods this time must mean that some organization has found a way to satisfy the fifth hall's request. Unfortunately, our Tianhe clan is powerless against the fifth hall's request. Perhaps before long, our Tianhe clan will have to leave the Dark Star world. Chapter 2856. There were over 100 seats around a huge round table in the pantheon. When Jianqin followed He Qianqian to the pantheon, he discovered that most of the seats were already occupied. Jianqian was familiar with all the people who had the right to sit. Although he did not know the names of many of them, he had seen them before in Two World Mountain. This was because these people were all representatives sent by various organizations. Not all of them were divine king, but there were also a few overgods among them. Chu Jia, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, Gong Rui, and Zhou Ji, who had a conflict with him in Two World Mountain, were among them. Seeing Jianqin arrive, Jin Hong, Ping Yisheng, and the other prodigies who approved of Jianqin stood up and clasped their fists towards Jianqin. They exchanged a few simple greetings. However, Chu Jia, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, Gong Rui, and Zhou Ji's faces sank. The light in their eyes flickered with extremely well-concealed, killing intent. Jianqin glanced at the five of them deeply before looking away. He stood behind He Qianqian as if nothing had happened. Jianqin could clearly sense the killing intent from Chu Jia and the other four. They believed that they had concealed their killing intent very well and could fool everyone present, but they could not fool Jianqin. It was just that 5 divine kings, he really did not place them in his eyes. After waiting for a while, everyone in the pantheon finally arrived. At this moment, a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s broke the silence. "We have gathered in the pantheon this time to discuss the fifth hall's conditions and other matters. Right now, the 7th divine hall's hatred towards our 100 Saint city is too deep. If we want to continue to establish ourselves here, we cannot leave the 5th hall's protection. As a result, we have to complete the 5th hall's conditions no matter what." At this point, the middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing. "During this period of time, I'm sure everyone has received a reply from their respective families. I wonder which family or faction has the ability to complete the mission given by the 5th hall." Yang Yutian. This person is from the Heavenly Thunder tribe. His surname is Lei, and his given name is June. His name is Lei Jun. While the middle-aged man was speaking, He Qianqian introduced him to Jianqin via voice transmission. As soon as Lei Jun finished speaking, Haojia's Haochen said, "I see that fellow Taoist Lei Jun is full of confidence. I presume that your Heavenly Thunder clan has already found a solution." Lei Jun laughed heartily when he heard that. He said, "I can't hide it from you, Brother Haochen. Brother Haochen is right. Through the efforts of our elders, we have found a way to satisfy the 5th hall's needs." As he spoke, Lei Jun glanced around. His expression was somewhat proud as he said, "I wonder if there is anyone here who can satisfy the 5th hall's conditions. News has come from our Jade Pill sect. Our ancestor has already come out of seclusion. He will personally create his own pill recipe. With his great attainments in the Tao of Alchemy, it won't be difficult for him to refine a pill that isn't at the divine level, but is even more effective than the divine level. I believe that the pill will be refined soon and sent to the Dark Star boundary." The prodigy of the Jade Pill sect said. His gaze met Lei Jun's. Then a meaningful smile appeared on both of their faces. After that, no one else spoke in the Pantheon Palace. Many people's expressions were gloomy. Apart from the Heavenly Thunder tribe and the Jade Pill sect, none of the dozens of top forces in the 100 Saint city could satisfy the 5th hall's requirements. Seeing this, Lei Jun from the Heavenly Thunder clans smile grew wider. With a confident expression, he continued That won't do. The Fifth Hall's Deputy Hall Master said that the Fifth Hall will protect whichever clan among us that can provide the Fifth Hall with what it needs. Now, only our Heavenly Thunder Tribe and the Jade Pill Sect can satisfy the Fifth Hall's requirements in the Pantheon Palace. Doesn't that mean that only our 2 clans are safe and sound in the 100 Saint City? All the other forces will find it difficult to establish themselves in the 100 Saint City? However, this won't do. When the 100 Saint City was built, each of our clans put in a lot of effort. Once you leave, only our Heavenly Thunder Tribe and the Jade Pill Sect will be left in the huge 100 Saint City. Hearing that, many prodigies' expressions turned ugly. Some people's eyes sparkled. When they looked at Lei Jun and the prodigy of the Jade Pill Sect, they revealed a thoughtful expression. I have a suggestion, but I don't know if it's feasible. The heavenly legend of the Jade Pill clan stood up, and his eyes flickered with excitement. He said, if there are no other clans or sects in the 100 Saint City, and only our Jade Pill clan and the Heavenly Thunder clan exist, does that mean that the Fifth Hall can protect our entire 100 Saint City? Hearing this, Harren chuckled and stared coldly at the prodigy of the Jade Pill Sect. He said, then, according to your Jade Pill Sect, do you want all the clans and forces in the 100 Saint City that can't meet the Fifth Hall's requirements to join your Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Tribe? The prodigy of the Jade Pill Sect smiled slightly and said, this is just an idea of mine. In the Dark Star Realm, all the forces in the 100 Saint City will merge into the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Tribe. Once we leave the Dark Star Realm, we won't be bound by this rule, and we'll still go our separate ways. Ha ha ha, that's not impossible. Of course, this is only a temporary measure. It's only on the surface. Everything is for everyone to gain a foothold in the Dark Star Realm and for the greater benefits of the clan. It won't affect the status of the Saints' world at all. Lei Jun chuckled. You actually want so many of us to merge into your Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Tribe and follow your lead. Only you can think of something so absurd. Aren't you afraid that you'll end up stuffing yourself to death? Man Yun Jun from the Man family sneered. Jade Pill Sect, Heavenly Thunder Tribe, you sure are bold. Aren't you afraid of offending our Baijan clan and causing you to suffer in the future? Baijan Xiong from the Baijan clan sneered as well. His eyes were filled with disdain. Please be careful with your words. Once the ancestor of our Hao Jia is angered, just your Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder Tribe probably won't be able to endure our Hao Jia's fury. Hao Chen's face sank as well as he said with a fake smile. In short, the Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder Tribe suggestion had basically angered all the clans present. Everyone's eyes shone viciously as they responded coldly. Only a few clans remained silent as their eyes flickered with light. Chapter 2857. After Lei Jun finished speaking, no one in the Pantheon Divine Palace spoke again. The atmosphere was somewhat solemn. While all the geniuses gathered here had ugly expressions, some of them had a glimmer in their eyes, with a trace of hesitation. They could already tell that the Heavenly Thunder Clan and the Jade Pill Sect were in cahoots. The 2 clans wanted to use this opportunity to rearrange the benefits of the 100 Saint City so that they could obtain the greatest benefits. However, no one present could accept the Heavenly Thunder Clan and the Jade Pill Sect's request because many of them had clans that were much more powerful than the 2 clans. Ignoring the Archean clans behind the Heavenly Thunder Clan, some of the peak organizations in the Divine Hall were even several levels more powerful than the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Clan. The clans in the Saints' world were so powerful, yet they had to lower themselves to the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Clan, 2 clans that were far weaker than them in the Dark Star world. This was something that none of the prodigies in the Divine Hall could accept, let alone the organizations that were more powerful than the Heavenly Thunder Clan and the Jade Pill Sect. Even the organizations that were weaker than the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder Clan were unable to accept this. After all, As peak clans that stood at the apex of the Saints' world, they were all existences that reigned supreme. They were the rulers of their own territories, so they naturally had their pride. How could they be willing to live under someone else's roof? However, the benefits of the Darkstar realm were truly too great. If they were to lose the foundation of the Darkstar realm, although they would still be able to purchase the items of the Darkstar realm from other powers, they would inevitably be restricted by others. At the same time, the items they obtained would have to be carefully selected by others before being given to them. The difficulty of obtaining some extremely rare and precious materials would increase drastically. It would be nowhere near as good as directly purchasing them from the Darkstar world. As a result, if the dignity and face of the clans were ignored, the Heavenly Thunder clan and the Jade Pill Sect's suggestion had its merits. Even He Qianqian's gaze became hesitant. Clearly, she was rather tempted, but there was even more conflict in her gaze. Jianqin, who stood behind He Qianqian, sensed the change in her expression with his sharp senses. He asked through a communication technique, "Miss Chiao, you represent the Heavenly Crane clan. Would your Heavenly Crane clan rather take the resources of the Dark Star world than your dignity as a peak clan? Moreover, if we agree to the Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder clan suggestion, the 100 Saint City will be ruled by the two clans in the future. Even if your Heavenly Crane clan can continue to gain a foothold in the Dark Star world, the resources you will have to be heavily filtered by the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan. Yang Yutian, you don't understand. You simply don't understand how important some of the rare heavenly treasures in the Dark Star world are to our Heavenly Crane clan. If we were to lose everything here, not only would our Heavenly Crane clan's cultivation of the younger generation slow down, even our clan's high-end battle strength would be affected." He Qianqian's voice was extremely grave. She hesitated for a moment, then continued, "In our Heavenly Crane clan there is a divine level pill called the Ancestral Blood Pellet. Once we consume this pellet, it will stimulate our bloodline and increase the strength of our bloodline for a short period of time. It might even cause an effect of atavism, causing our battle strength to multiply. The Ancestral Blood Pellet is extremely important to our Heavenly Crane clan. There is an important material required to concoct the Ancestral Blood Pellet that can only be found in the Dark Star world. If we are unable to obtain this material, the effect of the Ancestral Blood Pellet concocted will be greatly reduced. What material do you need to concoct the Ancestral Blood Pellet? If I come across it in the future, I can gather some for you," asked Jianqin. "Divine blood soil," He Qianqian replied. Jianqin frowned slightly, revealing a pondering expression. He had been the 5th Hall Master for several days, so he had some understanding of some of the rare materials in the Dark Star world. However, he had never heard of divine blood soil. Divine blood soil, divine blood soil. Since it's soil, it must be related to soil. Could it be the ancestral sacred land of the Dark Star race? Thought Jianqin. He had read some fragmented records. In the distant past, when the Grand Exalts of the Dark Star race and the Grand Exalts of the Wood Spirit race fought, there was blood that had spilled on the ground. The blood had dyed the soil, causing the ordinary soil to become extraordinary. This soil was known as the ancestral sacred land in the Dark Star world. After a moment of silence, Jianqin suddenly looked at the Jade Pill Sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan. He said, "I have something to say. How can your Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder clan be certain that the things you've prepared will definitely satisfy the 5th Hall's needs? What if the 5th Palace is not satisfied with the medicinal pills or natural treasures offered by your two clans? Then wouldn't your so-called proposal become a joke? Moreover, we haven't even brought those things in yet. As long as they haven't entered the Dark Star world, it's hard to say whether or not they can be brought in." Just as Jianqin finished speaking, Ping Yixing of the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect stood up and said, "Brother Yang Yutian is correct. You haven't brought your things in yet, and you haven't received the 5th Hall's acknowledgement. It's still too early to talk about this. Everyone, I won't waste any more time here. I'll take my leave first. Once the fifth hall acknowledges your things, we can discuss the rest." With that, Ping Yixing immediately walked out. "Please wait. I'll send someone to notify the fifth hall right now. Mr. Ping Yixing, please wait here for a moment," Lei Jun of the Heavenly Thunder Clan said confidently. Then he immediately sent an emissary to the fifth divine hall. His words immediately caused many people's expressions to change slightly. A prodigy asked in surprise, "You're in such a hurry to notify the fifth hall? Has your Heavenly Thunder Clan already brought the items in?" Lei Jun smiled without saying anything. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Clearly he had tacitly agreed. Ping Yixing, who had already reached the entrance of the hall, stopped. He turned around and looked deeply at Lei Jun. "Your Heavenly Thunder Clan sure moves quickly. I never thought that under such harsh conditions you would be able to accomplish something that we couldn't do in such a short amount of time. It must be the force behind your Heavenly Thunder Clan that did it." Chapter 2858. I've already come. Ha ha ha. Originally, I only came to understand the situation and see if your clans in the outside world can find a way to fulfill the requirements of our fifth hall. I never thought that you would have already brought the item in. The 100 Saint City really hasn't disappointed the Hall Master. Just when the emissary from the Heavenly Thunder Clan was about to head to the royal capital of the Darkstar Clan to invite the upper echelon of the fifth hall, clear laughter suddenly rang out in the Divine Hall. The voice was loud and possessed a supreme sense of dignity. It also possessed the pressure of the primordial realm. Jianqin could tell with a single glance that the voice belonged to the weakest of the 3 Vice Hall Masters, Bingyuan. It was exactly because he was the weakest in the fifth hall that Bingyuan basically had to take care of all the errands and miscellaneous matters that the upper echelon of the fifth hall had to deal with. The eyes of the prodigies from the Heavenly Thunder Clan and the Jade Pill sect lit up. Lei Jun could not help but laugh aloud. "So it's the Vice Hall Master. Welcome, Vice Hall Master. Please forgive us for not coming out to welcome you." Before Lei Jun had even finished speaking, another person silently appeared in the Divine Hall. It was the Vice Hall Master of the fifth hall, Bingyuan. Apart from Jianqin, no one sensed Bingyuan's arrival, nor did they know when he had entered the Divine Hall. When everyone discovered Bingyuan's existence, he stood there leisurely as if he had already been there for a very long time. Bingyuan did not pay any attention to the many geniuses gathered here. From the moment he appeared in the Pantheon Palace, his gaze was fixed on Lei Jun from the Heavenly Thunder Tribe. He ignored everyone else. It was as if the cultivators in the 100 Saints City were not worth mentioning in his eyes. If it were not for the fact that he had to complete the Hall Master's mission, he would not even want to come into contact with them. What our fifth hall needs are heavenly resources or pills that have reached the God tier and can heal the soul. Has the item that your Heavenly Thunder Clan has brought really met our requirements? Bing Yuan locked onto Lei Jun and slowly released the pressure of his primordial realm, crushing down on Lei Jun like a mountain. Although his words sounded like a reminder, they were also a warning. He wanted everyone to understand that if they were unable to take out anything, then it would be fine. However, once they took out something, they would have to meet the requirements of the fifth hall. If they were unable to meet the requirements, then the fifth hall would no longer be a target for them to toy with. Lei Jun felt a sense of suffocation. He could not breathe normally, and his face turned pale. He was only an early divine king, and he had only broken through recently. Now that he faced the pressure of a primordial realm expert, he immediately found it extremely difficult. "Don't worry, Vice Hall Master. This item from our Heavenly Thunder Clan will definitely not disappoint you," Lei Jun said with great difficulty. "Oh, then I shall wait and see. I hope you won't disappoint me." Bing Yuan slowly retracted his pressure, his eyes filled with anticipation. At that moment, none of the heaven's prides in the Pantheon Divine Palace spoke a word. All of their gazes were focused on Lei Jun, each with their own thoughts. For a moment, Lei Jun had become the center of attention. Under everyone's gazes, Lei Jun could not help but show a sliver of complacency. Afterwards, he took out a jade box that was a meter long from his space ring steadily. As soon as the jade box appeared, over 100 senses of the soul immediately surrounded it. As the jade box did not contain any formations that could block the senses of the senses of the soul easily penetrated it. However, when the owners of the senses of the soul saw what was inside, all of them were stunned. Afterwards, confusion filled their faces. The fifth hall's Vice Hall Master Bingyuan also released his divine sense and saw the item placed in the jade box clearly. He was stunned at first, then his face instantly turned ashen. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, Lei Jun's voice sounded in time. "Vice Hall Master, please calm down. What you see now is not the finished item. Please wait a moment and witness an incredible miracle." A gleam of light immediately flashed through Bingyuan's eyes when he heard that. A sliver of doubt appeared in his eyes, and he remained silent as he stood to one side. Everyone in the Pantheon Divine Palace, including Jianqin, became curious. This was because they already knew that the jade box Lei Jun had taken out did not contain a god-tier heavenly resource. Instead, it was a heavenly resource that was only at the 9th grade of the truth tier. If it was in the outside world, it could be nurtured to god tier, but that would require an extremely long period of time. It could take as long as 10,000 years, or even longer. However, in the Dark Star world, it was not suitable to grow heavenly resources from the Saints' world due to the limited environment. Moreover, even if it could be nurtured, would the Fifth Hall have to wait so long? Does the Heavenly Thunder Clan have a method to make this heavenly resource reach God tier in an extremely short amount of time? Jianqin was very doubtful as well. As a primordial realm expert, he was knowledgeable, so he understood the difficulties involved. In the Saints' world that produced experts, it was indeed possible for great experts to accomplish some heaven-defying feats, regardless of the cost. However, this was the Dark Star world that was heavily restricted. What could be done in the Saints' world might not necessarily be possible in the Dark Star world. At this time, Lei Jun opened the jade box and took out a small tree that was not even 1 meter tall. On the small tree, there was a red fruit that was only the size of a cherry. It was sparkling and translucent, and it was dazzling. It looked like a gem. The scarlet blood-colored glass fruit is indeed a natural treasure that can heal the primordial spirit. However, Lei Jun, I'm very curious. If you can transform a 9th grade truth-ranked scarlet blood-colored glass fruit into a divine grade, said Ping Yixing of the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect. From the looks of it, it's basically impossible for the scarlet glazed fruit to reach God tier without several 100,000 years, said the leader of the Heaven Sect. Lei Jun revealed a meaningful smile. He did not reply. Instead, he took out a wooden box from his space ring and carefully placed it on the table. First, he was extremely respectful as he knelt towards the wooden box devoutly. Only then did he respectfully open the wooden box and take out 3 fist-sized pieces of white jade from within. He placed the 3 pieces of white jade around the scarlet glazed fruit before taking out some blood-red soil from his space ring. He sprinkled the soil on the 3 pieces of white jade. God blood soil! As soon as the blood-red soil appeared, a series of exclamations rang out in the temple of the gods. Everyone looked at the divine blood soil with a burning gaze. The Tianhe clan was not the only clan that needed god blood soil. Many peak clans in the Saints' world were in desperate need of it as well. This was because once god blood soil was added to pills that required vital energy, the pills would undergo a qualitative change. Chapter 2859. However, although soil of divine blood could be produced in the Dark Star world, it was clearly extremely rare. Whenever it appeared, the peak organizations in the 100 Saint City would engage in an intense bidding war for it, or they would reach an agreement with the other organizations in the 100 Saint City to split the soil of divine blood equally. As a result, it naturally became difficult to obtain soil of divine blood. As a result, A few prodigies coveted Lei Jun's soil of divine blood. However, even more people focused their gazes on the 3 white jade stones. These jade stones looked extremely ordinary to anyone. There was nothing special about them. In fact, they did not even have the slightest bit of energy. However, Lei Jun sprinkled such a precious item like the soil of divine blood on these 3 jade stones. This involuntarily aroused everyone's curiosity. The vice leader of the 5th hall, Bingyuan, stared at the 3 jades as well. A smear of doubt appeared on his face. This was because, even with his cultivation as an infinite prime, he failed to see through the mysteries of the 3 jades. Only Jianqin sensed it in the universal divine hall. Not only had his soul exceeded the first heavenly layer of infinite prime Bingyuans, but it had also undergone a mutation, so it was different from before. As a result, he could clearly sense that something was hidden in the 3 white jades. He frowned slightly as he pondered deeply. Only after some serious analysis did he finally frown, slightly. There seemed to be 3 invisible seeds hidden in the white jades that ordinary people cannot sense. These seeds are related to the laws of time. They seem to be seeds of the laws of time. Even with Jian Chen's breadth of knowledge, he was amazed when he arrived at this conclusion. He had no idea how to turn laws into a seed, nor did he know whether the seed was formed naturally or through someone's great ability. However, just its existence alone was a miracle. Most importantly, the seeds of the laws of time did not possess any energy, and the laws of time within them were only equivalent to an early divine king at most. As a result, they were not god-tier items. As a result, they could break through the restrictions of the tunnel between the 2 worlds and enter the dark star world. At this moment, something happened to the 3 pieces of white jade. The god's blood soil that Lei Jun had sprinkled on them suddenly shone with a blood-red light. Immediately, extremely pure vital energy radiated out. It was vast and tremendous, and just the pure vital energy alone was enough to force the surrounding geniuses to back away uncontrollably. Jian Chen's face changed slightly as well. Perhaps it was due to the uniqueness of his soul, but he could sense even more from the vital energy. It was an emotion that was filled with reluctance, resentment, fury, and vengeance. It felt as if the vital energy had a spirit of its own. It had already produced its own emotions. However, Jianqin knew that the emotions within the vital energy were left behind by the owner of the vital energy in the past. However, the owner of the vital energy was just too powerful, too terrifying. He possessed the power to turn something rotten into something miraculous. Even though he had already died, his blood had still been tainted with his will. Even after countless years, his will had not dispersed. At this moment, a portion of the vital energy within the soil of divine blood rapidly fused with the 3 jades. In the end, they were all absorbed by the jades. Perhaps it should be said that the seeds within the jades were absorbing the mysterious energy within the vital energy. The mysterious energy was like a great supplement to the time seeds within the jades. After absorbing the energy, the 3 time seeds actually began to grow at an astonishing rate. As they grew, the power of the laws of time could no longer be concealed. After the mysterious power was absorbed by the seed of time, the power of qi and blood that seeped out of the soil of God's blood seemed to have lost its backbone. It could no longer maintain its condensed state and dissipated into the void, blending into the world. Time passed silently. In less than 5 minutes, the vital energy within the soil of divine blood had completely dispersed. The soil of divine blood that all the large organizations coveted had been reduced to a pile of ordinary dirt before everyone. The time seeds within the 3 jades seemed to have received enough nourishment as well, allowing them to completely grow. The sliver of power from the laws of time that they had inadvertently leaked seemed to change the flow of time around the jades, causing the space there to become rather hazy. Bang! Suddenly, the 3 jades exploded without any prior signs. Immediately, The 3 seeds hidden within the jades were no longer restrained. All the power of the laws of time erupted like wild horses, forming a whirlpool of time that was a meter wide. The scarlet glass fruit on the side was wrapped up by the whirlpool of time as well. The flow of time within the whirlpool of time had reached an extremely shocking level. The scarlet glass fruit within the whirlpool of time changed at a visible rate. The fruit that was only the size of a cherry grew larger, and its color became brighter and brighter as well. The scarlet glass fruit was growing at an unbelievable rate. It was evolving from a 9th grade truth tier, heavenly resource, to a God tier, heavenly resource. All the prodigies in the pantheon became dumbfounded. Even Bing Yuan, who was a primordial realm expert, was stunned by this sight. Although he was a primordial realm expert, in terms of knowledge, Bing Yuan was not even as knowledgeable as the divine king in the pantheon. This was because Bing Yuan was from the Dark Star world. He was the strongest person he had come into contact with in his life. Even the Dark Star Emperor, who was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. Chaotic primes were only a legend among the Dark Star race. They could only learn a little about them from ancient records or from cultivators in the outside world, let alone chaotic primes. Many of the god kings in the pantheon could even come into contact with grand primes who were 1 level higher. Therefore, in terms of knowledge, the sky prides in the pantheon palace were naturally more knowledgeable. However, even these geniuses who were used to seeing the means of the strong were stunned by the scene in front of them, not to mention Bing Yuan, who grew up in a remote village and had never seen the colorful outside world. Not long after, the time vortex dissipated due to the exhaustion of the time force. It was unknown how long the scarlet-colored glass fruit had spent in the time vortex, but when it reappeared in front of everyone, it was already emitting a strong fragrance. Just a single whiff of the fragrance was enough to make people feel refreshed, as if their souls had been purified. The scarlet glass fruit had truly evolved from a 9th grade truth tier, heavenly resource, to a God tier, heavenly resource. Looking at the crimson glazed fruit and sensing the genuine fluctuation of a divine level heavenly treasure, the sky prides in the pantheon's palace were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Their faces were filled with disbelief and confusion. I never thought that a God tier, heavenly resource could grow faster like this. This is truly breathtaking. Truly breathtaking. Time acceleration interferes with the laws of the world. Not only does a heavenly resource need time and energy to evolve to God tier, but it also needs to be baptized by the laws of the world. As a result, many peak experts in the Saints world have already rejected the idea of using time acceleration to nurture God tier, heavenly resources, because it's impossible. The scarlet glass fruit success is truly a miracle. The scarlet glass fruit's success definitely isn't due to the laws of time. The god blood soil must be the most important thing. Chapter 2860. Perhaps he had seen through the thoughts of these people. The corners of Lei Jun's mouth involuntarily revealed a cold smile. Using a somewhat mocking tone, he said, "I advise everyone not to think too much. This is because today's example of using such a method to nurture a god-tier natural treasure is likely to be the only example up till now. Such an unbelievable method is simply impossible to replicate. Moreover, even if a peak expert who is skilled in the laws of time can replicate it, the cost and benefits will be completely disproportionate because the soil of divine blood is as precious as several dozen stocks or even more heavenly resources. At the same time, the soil of divine blood is a rare item that is priceless in the saints' world. Let me ask you which big family would be willing to cultivate a divine-level heavenly material of heaven and earth with soil of divine blood, which is worth at least dozens of divine-level heavenly material of heaven and earth? After hearing Lei Jun's explanation, the light in the eyes of the prodigies gathered in the Pantheon Hall dimmed. They were keenly aware of the value of God's blood soil. It was an important material for refining high-grade divine pills. Some high-grade gods would add God's blood soil to their pills. Not only would it increase the quality of the divine pills, but it would also increase the medicinal efficacy by several folds. It was far more valuable than several dozen God-tier, heavenly, and earthly treasures. Using such a precious item to nurture a divine-level natural treasure was indeed not worth it. Only when faced with the current situation of the Dark Star realm would one disregard the price and disregard the cost to use such a precious item like the divine blood soil on a mere truth-level natural treasure. Although this method of nurturing is not worth it, it's the only method that can satisfy the fifth hall's requirements in the Dark Star world, many people thought to themselves. They immediately began to record the entire process of how the blood-glazed fruit had turned into a god-tier heavenly resource. They planned on informing their clans in the outside world so that they could think of a solution. Lei Jun could obviously tell what these people were thinking, but he remained fearless. He was not worried that his method of nurturing the blood-glazed fruit would be copied. If it were in the Saints' world, a few peak organizations would be able to do it easily. However, in the Dark Star world, only his Heavenly Thunder clan could do it under the various restrictions. To be more precise, it was the power behind the Heavenly Thunder clan. Lei Jun waved his hand, and the scarlet blood-glass fruit that had just completed its god-level transformation flew into his hand. He casually held the scarlet blood-glass fruit with one hand, his expression filled with unconcealable pride and arrogance. He then smiled at Bing Yuan and said, "Respected Vice Palace Master, I wonder if the Fifth Palace is satisfied with this god-level scarlet blood-glass fruit." Bing Yuan sucked in a deep breath. Personally witnessing the scarlet glazed fruit go from the truth tier to the god tier was basically a miracle to him. However, he also understood that such an unbelievable method could only be used in the Saints' world with so many experts. As for his Dark Star race, he did not know if they would ever be able to break free. That's right, it is indeed of the divine tier. Furthermore, it is a heavenly resource that can heal the soul. However, as for whether it is satisfactory, it will have to be personally appraised by the Hall Master, said Bing Yuan. If that's the case, Lei Jun will give the scarlet glazed fruit to Vice Hall Master Bing Yuan. I hope Vice Hall Master Bing Yuan can pass it to the esteemed Fifth Hall Master for appraisal. Lei Jun was delighted. When he passed the scarlet glazed fruit to Bing Yuan, he continued, "In the Dark Star race, there's no need for such a heavenly resource. Across the entire Saints' world, only our Heavenly Thunder clan can nurture God-tier heavenly resources like this. In order to provide the Fifth Hall with this God-tier heavenly resource, our clan has expended a lot of effort because the value of the 3 jade stones with the laws of time has exceeded our expectations. We know how valuable this item is. Don't worry. Before the Hall Master appraises the fruit, our Fifth Hall will continue to protect you until the Hall Master personally gives the order," Bing Yuan said solemnly. Now that the Hall Master of the Fifth Hall had yet to return, even if the Heavenly Thunder clan took out a god-tier heavenly resource, he did not dare to make the decision on his own. This was because he did not know whether the heavenly resource would be of any use to the Hall Master's soul or not. Our Jade Pill sect will also refine a pill that meets the Fifth Hall's requirements, but the pill is still being refined right now. It'll probably take a few days for it to arrive. Once the pill arrives, our Jade Pill sect will immediately notify the Vice Hall Master. At this moment, a person from the Jade Pill sect spoke as well. He was extremely confident as well. He already knew that the ancestor of the Jade Pill sect would personally refine the pill this time. Since the ancestor had stepped forward, there was definitely no chance of failure. Good, good, good. Bing Yuan was overjoyed and constantly nodded. He was already surprised that he had obtained a god-tier heavenly resource, the scarlet blood-glass fruit. If he could obtain a god-tier pill as well, it would definitely be of great help to the Hall Master's recovery. Vice Hall Master, you've seen it too. Only the Heavenly Thunder clan and the Jade Pill sect can offer god-tier heavenly resources and pills. However, There are so many of us who can offer the same things. Once we fail to obtain the protection of your fifth hall, we'll definitely be chased out of the Dark Star world by the seventh hall. I hope the Vice Hall Master can put in a good word for us before the Hall Master and give us a chance to remain in the Dark Star world. We're willing to make up for it through other methods. At this moment, He Qian suddenly stood up. She seemed to be pleading as she clasped her fist towards Bing Yuan with her head lowered slightly. She said rather submissively. At that moment, she seemed to have completely forgotten that she represented the Tianhe clan. She was willing to lower her noble head to an infinite prime who was only a slightly larger ant in the eyes of the Tianhe clan in exchange for the hope of remaining in the Dark Star world. This was because some of the resources in the Dark Star world were just too important to the Tianhe clan. If they lost their foundation here, the entire clan would suffer heavy losses. Jianchen, who stood behind He Qian, immediately showed mixed feelings when he saw how He Qian was about to become submissive. In the end, he could only sigh inside and say nothing. This was because he had come into contact with Bing Yuan before. Even though his disguise was flawless, he did not want to attract Bing Yuan's attention. As a result, ever since Bing Yuan entered the Pantheon Hall, Jianchen became even more discreet. Miss Qian is right. Although we can't offer God-tier heavenly resources or pills, we can help the fifth hall in other ways, such as hunting some life-devouring beasts. I also know that there are many organizations that work for the fifth hall in the Dark Star world. But in terms of strength, those organizations don't even have the right to carry our shoes. I heard that the Dark Star race has been purchasing the corpses of life-devouring beasts recently. They've even gone as far as to offer several times the usual price. They've even offered a huge bounty for Divine King, Realm, life-devouring beasts. If we're talking about who's most capable of killing God King, life-devouring beasts in the current Dark Star race, it would be our 100 Saints City aside from Gu Qi, who's currently dead after causing havoc in Dark Knight City. With that, several other prodigies immediately spoke up. They shared the same thoughts as He Qian. They were unwilling to rely on the Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder Clan, nor were they willing to give up on the plentiful resources of the Dark Star world. As a result, they could only take a step back and look for other ways to obtain the protection of the fifth hall. Bing Yuan also became hesitant when he heard what they said. The day of the great ritual of the Dark Star race was drawing closer and closer. The ritual required a large number of life-devouring beasts, including Divine King, Realm, life-devouring beasts. However, the Dark Star race had always obtained pitifully few high-class, life-devouring beasts. They had only obtained a handful of low-class, life-devouring beasts, but they had purchased a large pile of low-class, life-devouring beasts. As a result, it was exactly as these people had said. The cultivators of the outside world who worked for the various halls were much weaker than the 100 Saints City. It was more than enough for them to kill over God-level life-devouring beasts. But obtaining Divine King-level life-devouring beasts would be extremely difficult. If the people of the 100 Saints City were to hunt Divine King-level life-devouring beasts, it would not be a bad idea. Chapter 2861. As soon as Bing Yuan's words came out, the forces in the Temple of Gods that couldn't take out divine tier medicinal pellets and heavenly treasures were overjoyed. At this moment, their mood was like a drowning person who suddenly grasped a life-saving straw when they were about to drown, giving them hope to live again. This naturally made their mood extremely excited. Hunting Divine King Realm life-sucking beasts was a life and death trial for the other cultivators from the outside world. The slightest carelessness could lead to the annihilation of the entire army. But for the forces in the 100 Saint City, it wasn't an impossible task. Because they all had the experience of crossing the two-world mountain. They had dealt with the life-sucking beasts many times. It could be said that they had accumulated a lot of valuable experience. In addition, they had a lot of Divine King Realm life-sucking beasts under their command. If the arrangement was right, it wasn't impossible to hunt down the Divine King Realm life-sucking beasts. It was even much easier than crossing the Two-World Mountain. Because they had crossed the Two-World Mountain, they were completely passive in battle. Every battle seemed extremely rushed, and there was no way to retreat. But now they were taking the initiative to attack. With the Dark Star realm behind them, they could attack or retreat. Moreover, they had more time to make a series of arrangements. Naturally, it was much easier to hunt. Compared to their excitement, the faces of the people from the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan were as ugly as they could be. They had already reached an agreement before. They were prepared to use this opportunity to restructure the structure of the 100 Saints city and reap the greatest benefits. In the end, Bingyuan's simple words shattered their dreams. While the two forces were unwilling to accept this, they also developed some resentment towards Bingyuan. Damn it! How can this be? Our Heavenly Thunder clan has paid so much to cultivate the scarlet, glazed fruit, and satisfied the requirements of the fifth hall. But these people only need to kill some divine king realm life sucking beasts to obtain the protection of the fifth hall. This is not fair. This is not fair. Late June was furious, but he did not dare show it. After all, this was the territory of the Dark Star. No matter how powerful the Celestial Thunder was, they could not do anything to the Dark Star people. Deputy Temple Master, although the value of the Divine King Realm Life-Sucking Beast is not small, compared to the divine pills and god-tier heavenly treasures of heaven and earth provided by the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan, it's like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. The value of the two is not on the same level at all. If the other forces only need to provide the corpse of the Divine King Realm Life-Sucking Beast and receive the same rewards as the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan, that would be too unfair to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan. The Sky Pride of the Jade Pill sect stood up and said indignantly, this time, in order to provide the pills that the fifth hall needed, the Jade Pill sect's old ancestor had personally come out of his seclusion and created the pill formula himself. The price they paid was not something that killing some divine king, realm life, sucking beasts could compare to. You can rest assured that the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan provided the Temple Master with what he needs, so you naturally deserve the most credit. If the Temple Master is satisfied with your pills and heavenly treasures of heaven and earth, the fifth hall will reward you according to your merits. When the time comes, you will benefit greatly. As for them, Bingyuan looked around and said indifferently, I'm only saying that they provided the Divine King Realm Life Sucking Beast, and I can speak up for them in front of the Temple Master. As for whether they can get the Temple Master's approval in the end, I can't guarantee it. With that, the Heavenly Thunder clan and the Jade Pill sect relaxed slightly. However, the other organizations in the Pantheon Divine Hall became rather unsettled after their initial excitement. They were afraid that they would end up with nothing after paying such a great price to kill the Divine King Realm Life Sucking Beast. However, they also understood that if they followed Bingyuan's words and handed the life-sucking beast over to the fifth hall, they would at least have a chance of obtaining the fifth hall's protection. Otherwise, they would not have any chance at all. The final outcome would be to submit to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder clan, or completely give up on what they had established here. Vice Leader Bingyuan did not stay in the 100 Saints city for long. Very soon he returned to the fifth hall with the god-tier scarlet blood glazed fruit. With his departure, the various organizations gathered in the Pantheon Divine Hall naturally dispersed as well. They returned to their own territories and immediately did two things. The first thing was to record the process of the scarlet blood glazed fruit reaching god tier in detail. Then they sent people to report it to their clans in the Saints' world. The second thing was to gather a large number of Divine King Realm Deathsworn in the Divine Hall. In the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, 300 to 400 Divine King Deathsworn had already gathered. They were lined up neatly in a square, standing before He-Chan-Chan respectfully. The Heavenly Crane clan had brought close to 1,000 Divine King Realm Deathsworn into the Dark Star world. Some had died in battle when they crossed the two-world mountain, so around 700 to 800 of them remained. The death-sworn gathered in the heavenly crane divine hall had already made up half of them. He Qian sat on the throne sternly. She radiated with an icy cold presence, causing the entire hall to seem like an icy cavern. It was extremely cold. She glanced past the several hundred divine king realm death-sworn before landing on the white-clothed Genshin indifferently in the end. She said with what she believed to be a very dignified voice, "Yang Yutian, you are a member of our Heavenly Crane clan in the Dark Star world. The matters of the Heavenly Crane clan are your matters. Protecting the interests of the Heavenly Crane clan is your duty. Now that the Heavenly Crane clan needs you, are you willing to fight for the Heavenly Crane clan?" Genshin lightly smiled, clasped his fist, and said, "Of course I am duty-bound. The clan needs you to go to the Two-World Mountain to hunt down the Divine King Realm life-devouring beast. I have dispatched half of the Divine King Realm Deathsworn in the clan to you. They will listen to your orders." "I hope you will not disappoint the clan," said He Qian. "But Miss Qian, I have just left the Two-World Mountain not long ago. Why are you in such a rush to have me go back again?" said Genshin with a bitter smile. He Qian revealed a helpless expression. She said, "Right now it has already reached the critical juncture of whether or not our Heavenly Crane clan can continue to establish itself in the Dark Star world. Furthermore, you are the strongest in our Heavenly Crane clan. I have no other choice. But don't worry. After we leave, I will definitely personally report the sacrifice you have made for our Heavenly Crane clan. I will strive for even more rewards for you. All right, I can go hunt down the Divine King, Realm, Life, Devouring Beast. However, I do not need these death-sworn. Their battle prowess is not essential to me. Moreover, I have grasped the laws of space. It will be easier for me to travel alone. It will be inconvenient to bring them along," said Genshin. He Qian nodded. She said, "Since that's the case, I will not assign these people to you. However, you must be extra careful when you travel alone. The threat you will face is definitely not as simple as the life-devouring beast in the Two-World Mountain. At the same time, you must be careful of the Dark Star race. If the Dark Star race were to know of your strength and talent, according to their usual practice, they will definitely not let you off. In addition, there is also Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiying, and Gong Rui's. You must also be extra careful." Chapter 2862. Genshin smiled mysteriously. He said without any care, "If I were that easy to kill, I would have died in the depths of Two-World Mountain long ago. How could I have survived until now? Don't worry, Miss Qian. I don't take Chu Jie and the others seriously at all." He Qian glanced at Genshin and said, "I know you're very powerful, so I'm just warning you so that you can be prepared. Otherwise, you'll be caught off guard when the time comes." Afterwards, He Qian explained the details to Genshin seriously. She did not care whether Genshin knew about it or not. She explained everything she knew about Two-World Mountain to Genshin, as well as everything he needed to pay attention to. She gave Genshin more information about Two-World Mountain from all angles. Although Genshin was a powerful primordial realm expert and could move about freely in Two-World Mountain, he still benefited greatly from He Qian's explanation. He learnt many secrets that he had never learnt before. After all, the 100 Saint City had been operating in the Dark Star realm for tens of thousands of years. The number of times they had entered the Two-World Mountain was much more than the number of times the Dark Star race had. Thus, their knowledge of the Two-World Mountain surpassed even the Dark Star race in certain aspects. Genshin left the 100 Saint City all by himself. He did not try to hide himself at all, flying towards the Two-World Mountain in broad daylight. He Qian split the several hundred Divine King level death-sworn gathered in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall into several groups and sent them to the depths of Two-World Mountain. She could not rely on Genshin alone to hunt down the life-devouring beasts, as she knew that a single or 2 divine king, level life devouring beasts would not be of much use. Only when there were so many of them that even the 5th hull could not ignore them would they have a chance at obtaining the 5th hull's protection. Therefore, in order to hunt more divine king realm life devouring beasts, she had to dispatch as many people as possible to the Two-World Mountain. In 100 Saint City, He Qianqian wasn't the only one who made a move. Many top clans also sent out a large number of divine king realm death warriors to leave 100 Saint City. Even Jin Hong was no exception. Although Jin Hong had already received the ancestor's message, telling him that he could abandon the foundation of the Dark Star race at any time. That was a choice made when there was no hope left. Now that a ray of hope had appeared, he naturally had to grasp it. At this moment, Jin Hong was standing at the entrance of the Ashwolf clan's shrine. He gazed at the direction of the 100 Saint City and couldn't help but frown. He Qianqian really sent Yang Yutian to Dual World Mountain. Doesn't Yang Yutian know that those who have a grudge with him have been watching him? He didn't even try to hide when he left the city. Men! Jin Hong suddenly shouted in a low voice. Young master! Immediately, 2 overgods of the Ashwolf clan appeared. Looking at their attire, they seemed to be in charge. Immediately sent people to watch the Chu clan, Gong clan, Zhao clan, Songchun clan, and Jade sect. If they do anything, inform me immediately, said Jin Hong. Yes, young master. At the same time, in the shrine of the Chu clan, Gong clan, Zhao clan, Songchun clan, and Jade sect, many divine king realm death warriors were gathered. Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiying, and Zhou Ji were sitting in the main seats, making a series of arrangements. After a while, the 5 of them had disguised themselves as divine king realm death warriors. Not only were their appearances changed, but their auras were also changed with the help of special items. Although their disguise looked a little crude and could be easily seen through in close contact, it could deceive the judgment of divine sense to a certain extent. When they disguised themselves as divine king realm death warriors, the divine king realm death warrior they replaced used the same method to exchange their identities. Remember, before this young master returns, you must not step out of this hall, and you must not activate the formation in the hall. Even if you speak, you must completely imitate my voice, understand? After completing the exchange of identities, the 5 of them sternly said to the divine king realm death warrior who disguised themselves as them, Yes, young master. The divine king realm death warriors responded. Soon after, Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, and Zhou Ji, who had changed their appearances, blended into the group of divine king realm death warriors and set off from their respective temples, flying out of the 100 Saint City. When the 5 of them had just set off, Jin Hong and He Qianqian's divine sense spread over and enveloped all the divine king realm death warriors. After circling around for a short while, they seemed to have not discovered any abnormalities and withdrew their divine sense. Although the decision-makers of the major forces in the 100 Saint City had all reached a consensus not to leave the city because of the situation in the Dark Star realm, to prevent the people of the 7th Divine Palace from playing tricks on them in the wilderness, He Qianqian and Jin Hong were obviously worried that they would take risks out of desperation. Therefore, they were constantly paying attention to the movements of Chu Jie and the other 4. Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Firmament family, and Jade sect have all sent out a small half of the divine king realm death warriors, which is completely suitable for hunting the life-sucking beast. However, even if these death warriors want to harm Yang Yutian, they shouldn't be able to catch up to Yang Yutian's speed. Yang Yutian, I can only help you keep an eye on Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Zhao Wenbin, Gong Rui's, and Kong Feiying. As long as the 5 of them aren't present, the divine king realm death warriors won't be able to form a formation. Without a primordial realm formation, they shouldn't be able to threaten you. The white-clothed He Qianqian stood on the roof of the heavenly crane divine hall as she stared in the direction of the city gates and murmured softly, Young master, we've just received news that Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, and the others are all in the Divine Hall. On the other side, Jin Hong had also received news from his scouts and immediately became much more relieved. After dismissing the attendants, he sat down on the throne and sank into his thoughts. In his mind, he couldn't help but recall the scene of the bloodline power in his body rioting uncontrollably every time he got close to Yang Yutian, as well as the feeling of extreme desire that was faintly transmitted. What on earth is in Yang Yutian's body? Or am I wrong? And the reason for my bloodline's agitation is not an item, but his bloodline, which is also special and closely related to our Ashwolf clan. Should I find an opportunity to ask him after he returns? Jin Hong thought. He had kept this matter to himself for far too long. However, he was worried that it would affect his relationship with Yang Yutian, which was why he never asked. Jian Chen flew 1,000 meters in the air outside the 100 Saint city. He made his way towards the Two-World Mountain at a steady pace. However, he did not travel in a straight line. Instead, he took a slight detour to avoid the shortest path with people. However, there was a vague smile on his face the entire time. Mockery would flicker through his eyes from time to time. At this moment, the space around Jianchen suddenly became blurry. At the same time, the flow of time in the blurry space underwent an overwhelming change. The flow of time had actually sped up by several dozen times. Jianchen could clearly sense that the space around him seemed to have been forcefully changed into a miniature world that was different from the Dark Star race. Not only was it an independent space, but it also possessed the laws of time that belonged to it. Are these the laws of space and the laws of time? I never thought I'd come across a genius who grasps both the laws of space and time in the Dark Star race, even in the Saints' world. A person like that is as rare as a phoenix feather. Jianchen stopped. He hovered in the air with his arms crossed as he talked leisurely. At the same time, he carefully sensed the changes in the space around him with a sliver of interest. Chapter 2863. There were many people who had comprehended the laws of space in the Saints' world, and there were many who had comprehended the laws of time as well. However, basically all of them had only grasped one of the two laws. Cultivators who could comprehend both the laws of space and the laws of time were extremely rare in the Saints' world. They were so rare that they could be described as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. This was because the laws of space and the laws of time were connected to each other to a certain extent. Once someone grasped both laws, the difficulty of comprehending them would multiply, or even increase by several dozen times or even 100 times. However, the cultivator who Jianchen had encountered who had grasped both the laws of time and the laws of space had already reached the Divine King. If it were a Dark Star cultivator, Jianchen would not have been surprised because Dark Star cultivators had plenty of time to slowly increase their strength. However, the person who used the laws of space and time was a cultivator from the Saints' world. What did that mean? It meant that he was not even 1,000 years old, or he would not have been able to enter the Dark Star world. In just a short 1,000 years, he had comprehended both the laws of space and the laws of time to the Divine King. The difficulty he had gone through to achieve this was nowhere near as difficult as comprehending other laws. His talent could be described as unprecedented. He's clearly an early Divine King, but the domain he's created is so tough that even mid-Divine King experts will struggle to break through it. The combination of the laws of space and the laws of time really is powerful. Jianchen praised from the bottom of his heart. According to his observations, the domain could trap most late Divine King experts. This was an unbelievable matter. Sir, you have a good eye. You've already seen through the toughness of my world of heaven and earth without even testing it out. However, you've still underestimated my world of heaven and earth. More accurately, late Divine King experts will struggle to break through my world of heaven and earth. As for mid-Divine King experts, no one can break through it unless they possess the talent of a supreme Divine King. A gentle voice rang out. 100 meters in front of Jianchen, a white-robed young man appeared out of nowhere. He did not seem old, only around 18 or 19. He had delicate features and seemed like an inexperienced youth. His body exuded a peaceful aura that seemed to be able to purify nature, allowing his aura to integrate well into the surrounding world. Even his body seemed to be constantly integrated with the surrounding world, truly reaching the realm of being one with the world. World of heaven and earth. You call this domain the world of heaven and earth? Genshin asked. However, he also knew that it was reasonable to call this domain that had been changed by the laws of space and time a world. This was because the space had already become independent, as if it had truly become a miniature world. The flow of time here was completely different from the Dark Star realm. That's right. In my eyes, time is heaven and space is earth. The combination of time and space is a world. As a result, I call this world the world of heaven and earth, said the young man calmly. He stood with his hands behind his back, hovering 1,000 meters in the air like Genshin. He did not attack. Did the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Sangchung family, and Jade sect send you to deal with me? Are you so confident that you can trap me here with your world of heaven and earth? Genshin looked at the young man before him as his gaze gradually sharpened. The young man did not deny it. He nodded gently and said, Yang Yutian, I've already heard about your extraordinary battle prowess. You've almost caught up to the young master of the Ashen Wolf clan who obtained the Grand Exalt's legacy. Although my world of heaven and earth can't trap you for long, it shouldn't be a problem for a while. Nothing good will come out of becoming my enemy. Have you thought about the consequences of becoming my enemy? For someone like you to comprehend the laws of space and the laws of time to the Divine King at such a young age, you can be regarded as a supreme prodigy in the entire Saints world. It would be quite a pity if you died. If you leave right now, I can let bygones be bygones, Genshin said coldly. Apologies. I was only asked to do so. Since I've already made a promise, I need to do it. The young man smiled mysteriously when he reached there. He stared at Genshin like he was looking at a dead man and said, Moreover, even if you really can defeat me, you won't have the chance because if nothing unexpected happens, you probably won't be able to leave today. World of heaven and earth, open. The young man suddenly spread his arms wide. His entire body became a character. The laws of time and space revolved around him, fusing together and interfering with the surrounding space. As a result, a new miniature world formed around him. The miniature world expanded violently with his bellow, forcefully expanding by several times at that moment. As the miniature world expanded, more and more space was sucked into it. The people who originally stood on the boundary of the miniature world were naturally enveloped by the miniature world as well. These people were divided into 5 groups. There were close to 4,000 people in total, and every single one of them radiated with the presence of the Divine King. The 5 groups were the Divine King's men of sacrifice from the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Sangchung clan, and Yuqiong sect. They were led by Chu Jia, Zhao Wenbin, Gong Rui's Kong Feiying, and Zhou Ji. The 5 of them immediately glared at Genshin with hatred when they saw him, especially Chu Jia. Not only was his eyes filled with killing intent, but they were also filled with extreme hatred. His face had already twisted, making him seem abnormally vicious. Ha 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 ha, Yang Yutian, we finally caught you. Weren't you quite arrogant in Two-World Mountain back then? Why are you so terrified now? Are you afraid? Chu Jia laughed heartily as he stood among the Divine King's men of sacrifice. It was as if he finally had a chance to wash away the humiliation he had suffered back then. Yang Yutian, you didn't think you'd have a day like this, did you? You dared to offend us. There will only be one next time, and that is death. Yang Yutian, weren't you quite powerful back in Two-World Mountain? Today, I'd like to see how many rounds you can last under our formation. Today, you won't be able to escape. No one can save you. Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, Zhou Ji, and Zhao Wenbin all sneered as well. Their gazes towards Jianqin were filled with hatred, as well as extremely deep resentment. This hatred and resentment all came from the humiliation they had suffered back then. The humiliation they had suffered in front of so many people. Back in Two World Mountain, the 5 of them had lost many divine kings, men of sacrifice. Even they had almost died at the hands of Yang Yutian. Now, the 5 of them were full of confidence, and victory was in their grasp. They didn't take Yang Yutian seriously at all, because they had already formed a formation outside this small world in advance. Chapter 2864. The young man glanced past the 5 of them indifferently. Even though the 5 of them possessed the battle prowess of the primordial realm with the help of the formation, the young man did not show any fear at all. Instead, there was some slight disdain, as if he looked down on Chu Jie and the others. "I've already completed your request." "Don't forget your promise," the young man said indifferently. "Saint Child Wu Hua, don't worry. We will definitely complete our promise to your 5-point sect." Kong Feiying laughed aloud. "That's for the best." The young man called Saint Child Wu Hua nodded in satisfaction. He was just about to disperse his domain. Once Chu Jie and the others took action, they would erupt with the power of the primordial realm. His domain could temporarily stop late Divine King experts, but it was as fragile as paper before the might of a primordial realm expert. However, when Jianqin heard the name 5-point sect, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. He looked at Saint Child Wu Hua and was slightly surprised. He asked, "You're from the 5-point sect on the Star Brilliance plane?" Gong Ruizhi seemed to think of something when he heard Jianqin's question. He suddenly laughed aloud. "Ha ha ha, that's right. Saint Child Wu Hua is from the 5-point sect, one of the 10 great organizations on the Star Brilliance plane. Moreover, his status in the 5-point sect is extraordinary. He's a chosen saint, only second to the sect master, Yang Yutian. Don't tell me you're related to the 5-point sect at a time like this?" Saint Child Wu Hua said nothing. He hovered in the air as he stared at Jianqin calmly. Jianqin came to a realization. He ignored Gong Ruizhi and looked at Saint Child Wu Hua. "No wonder you've comprehended the laws of space and the laws of time to the Divine King at such a young age. So you're from the 5-point sect." The Point Cloud Venerable of the 5-point sect is one of the few people in the saints' world who can comprehend the laws of space and the laws of time to Grand Prime at the same time. It's said that he received the guidance of the space-time elder in the past, so he has extremely great attainments in the laws of space and time. Saint Sun Wu Hua's expression changed slightly. "You know that my master was taught by space-time elder? This information is not something a rogue cultivator should know. Not to mention a rogue cultivator. Even a disciple from a top force would not be able to come in contact with this information before reaching a certain height. Who are you? My teacher? The Point Cloud Supremacy is actually your master? I'm really surprised." Jianqin was rather surprised. He could not help but take a good look at Saint Child Wu Hua. He said, "The Point Cloud Venerable helped me in the past. Even though his help seemed to have other motives, it must be said that his help back then was extremely useful to me. Since you're the Point Cloud Exalted's disciple, I'll spare you today for the sake of the Point Cloud Exalted. However, while you can avoid death, you cannot escape punishment." With that, Jianqin directly struck out. In a single moment, he shone brightly as powerful sword qi enveloped him in a dazzling white light. Afterwards, it formed a huge strand of sword qi that stabbed towards Saint Sun Wu Hua. The strand of sword qi was completely condensed from the laws of the sword. Even though it was only at the level of mid-Divine King's laws, the sword intent within it was powerful enough to affect Saint Sun Wu Hua's world of the world. Under the impact of the powerful sword intent, the world of the world of the world shook violently. Space twisted violently, and the flow of time was forcefully severed. Saint Sun Wu Hua's face changed. He immediately extended a finger towards the space before him and said gently, the world is different. So close yet worlds apart. As he extended his finger, the entire world of the world of the world of the world changed dramatically. This independent and incomplete, small world seemed to have been divided into two at that moment, isolating himself and Jianqin in two completely different spaces. As a result, the two of them appeared to be less than 100 meters apart. However, under the influence of the space between them, the distance had been stretched infinitely. It could be hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, or even further. If they truly wanted to cross this distance, the amount of time it would take would be even more difficult to calculate. This was because not only did it involve space, but it also involved the interference of time. The combination of the laws of space and the laws of time complemented each other. It is indeed very mysterious. Unfortunately, your level is too low to bind me. Jianqin's voice rang out. The sword qi he controlled suddenly erupted with sword light that seemed to destroy space and sever time. It broke through all the restrictions of the world 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 with unstoppable force and arrived before Saint Sun Wu Hua in an instant. At that moment, Saint Sun Wu Hua was no longer able to maintain his previous composure. His expression suddenly changed, revealing a look of shock. The power of space around him surged wildly as if he wanted to forcefully change the space around him and isolate the sword qi. However, the power of the sword qi had far surpassed the laws of space that he could control. Even the power formed by the combination of the laws of space and the laws of time was unable to affect Jianqin's sword qi in the slightest. Boom! With a loud noise, Jianqin's sword qi hit Saint Sun Wu Hua mercilessly. It did not pass through Saint Sun Wu Hua's body like a sharp object. Instead, under Jianqin's precise control, the sword qi exploded when it approached Saint Sun Wu Hua. In the end, it formed a ball of energy light that still carried the sharp aura of the sword qi and sent Saint Sun Wu Hua flying. At the same time, the world of the world that Saint Sun Wu Hua had used also collapsed and completely collapsed. Saint Sun Wu Hua was sent flying far away with a pale face. The gorgeous robe he wore had turned to ashes, revealing a set of close-fitting armor underneath. The armor was a set of supreme divine implements. However, at the moment, it was dim and covered with dense engravings. You actually defeated me with one strike. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. 1,000 meters away, Holy Sun Wu Hua floated in the air in a sorry state. His face was full of disbelief, as if he could not accept it at all. He had already known about Yang Yutian's various achievements in Borderline Mountain. He had a rough estimate of Yang Yutian's strength. He was confident that with the combination of the laws of space and the laws of time, it would not be impossible for him to defeat Yang Yutian, let alone trap Yang Yutian. However, he had never expected that reality would be so cruel and hard to accept. He was actually unable to withstand a single move from Yang Yutian. If it were not for the fact that Yi Futian did not want to kill him, he would probably be dead by now. On the other side, Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Gong Rui's Kong Feiying, and Zhao Wenbin were shocked by how Jianqin had defeated Saint Sun Wu Hua in a single strike. The battle prowess Yang Yutian displayed right now seemed to be much more powerful than when he was in Borderline Mountain. However, they were in a formation now, so they could take on Primordial Realm experts. As a result, even though Yang Yutian's strength had exceeded their expectations, they did not show any fear. At the same time, Jin Hong sat on the throne in the divine hall of the Ashwolf clan in 100 Saint City. He did not cultivate. Instead, he paid attention to the movements of the Chu family, Zhou family, Gong family, Sangchun clan, and Jade sect at all times. He protected Yang Yutian in 100 Saint City to prevent Chu Jie and the other leaders from sneaking out and using the primordial realm formations to deal with Yang Yutian. However, just when Saint Sun Wu Hua's world shattered and Jianqin's surging sword qi broke free from the restraints of the world and leaked into the world of the Dark Star world, Jin Hong seemed to sense it. His eyes snapped open, and two shocking streaks of light immediately shot out. With a single movement, he appeared on the roof of the Divine Hall and directly threw a punch at the Divine Hall of the Chu family. Boom! Jin Hong immediately punched a 10-meter-wide hole in the formation of the Divine Hall. Afterwards, Jin Hong immediately sent the senses of his soul in. He discovered the Divine King Warrior disguised as Chu Jie in the Divine Hall of the Chu family. Both his presence and appearance were the same as Chu Jie, but warriors were still warriors in the end, let alone the fact that they had ingested 100 Tribulations Divine King's pill. They only had 100 years of lifespan left. As a result, Jin Hong saw through the identity of the God King loyalist who played the role of Cheng Chujie in a single glance. What a great lie! Jin Hong was furious. His face paled, and he immediately charged out of the 100 Saints city. He did not take a single Divine King Warrior with him, hurrying towards the battlefield alone. The world has shattered. The disturbance here will probably reach the 100 Saints city very soon. We don't have much time, so let's do it and end it quickly. On the other side, Chu Jie suddenly bellowed out and launched an attack without any hesitation. The power of several hundred Divine King Warriors condensed on him through the formation. He suddenly swung the sword in his hand, and it immediately shone brightly. It produced 100-meter-long sword chi that slashed towards Jianqin. His strike was at the level of the primordial realm. The tremendous might immediately cause the clouds to churn in the sky as a tremendous pressure permeated the surroundings. It immediately alarmed all the cultivators in a range of several hundred kilometers. The moment Chu Jie struck out, Zhao Wenbin, Zhou Ji, Kong Feiying, and Gong Rui all struck out as well.